Chapter 76. Monkai. Divine thoughts rolled in, and with this call, Monkai immediately stopped his escape. I saw that it was a huge grey kingdom of God, and a figure had appeared outside the kingdom of God. Fang Cang. Monkai's face was full of excitement, as if he had seen his relatives. I was so busy running away that I didn't even notice what the other party's kingdom of God looked like. In addition, we hadn't seen each other for a long time, and the kingdoms of God on both sides had changed a lot, so I couldn't recognize them for a while. Looking at Monkai who was rushing towards him, Fang Cang rolled his eyes decisively. He also didn't expect to meet Monkai here. He received a support message a few days ago and had been struggling to find a fight. Finally, he got a mission, so he rushed to the target location as quickly as possible. But after arriving, they found that a huge battlefield had already formed here. After searching for a long time without success, he unexpectedly discovered this treasure land during a support mission. Fang Cang was overjoyed. Thus, the support mission was thrown behind his mind, and he plunged directly into the battlefield, fighting anyone he saw, and was very happy. The one he just destroyed was the third kingdom of God that he had destroyed, but it was also at this time that he discovered Monkai. He had seen the other party's kingdom of God before and had some impression of it, but because a lot of changes had taken place during this period, he was not quite sure whether this was Monkai. So he called out tentatively, even if he admitted his mistake, it didn't matter, at most he could just send the other person home. In other words, you have been fleeing all the way until now, and you haven't received any support. Fang Cang listened to Monkai's story with a strange look on his face. He recognized Monkai's strength. The reason he could hold on until now was not only because of his own strength, but also because those alien godsons might have been delayed by something. He now has some suspicion that Monkai is the fuse of this war. Do you remember your escape route? Who remembers that? I changed direction when I saw someone appearing. I don't know how far I ran. Monkai looked depressed. If he had the ability, he could fight one-on-one. What's the point of asking others for help? The other side's son of God has no moral principles. So can you still fight now? Fang Cang asked. In fact, the cause of the incident didn't matter anymore. The most important thing was whether Monkai could still fight. If not, he had to send Monkai to a safe place first. You can't just watch him get beaten to death here, can you? Able. Monkai's face was full of excitement and he answered very straightforwardly. But I can't be the main force anymore. I can launch a sneak attack. With Fang Cang around, he felt at ease. If he encountered an ordinary son of God, he could handle it by himself, but it would be very exhausting. If the two of them cooperated, there would be no problem. In that case, then you should do this. The two of them quietly discussed their next plan. In the void, two divine kingdoms, one grey and one yellow, were quietly moving toward the outskirts of the battlefield. They ignored the kingdoms of gods that were already fighting, and instead targeted the newly arrived sons of gods from other races. Edge of the battlefield. As the battlefield became larger and larger, the sons of gods from some other civilizations in the surrounding areas were also affected. As a result, various civilizations kept calling for support, and now an extremely chaotic battlefield has been formed. The sons of gods from all sides fought together, attacked each other, and constantly called for support, eventually forming the largest battlefield since the birth of this place where gods descended. At this time, a Mog godson who received support was heading to the target location. From a distance, he noticed the huge battlefield. He had experienced this situation before. Although the scale was not so large at that time, it was essentially the same. His choice is usually to take advantage of opportunities if there are any, and run away if there are none. Look, near the edge of the battlefield, he noticed a kingdom of God slowly moving outwards. The divine power in the kingdom of God has become very thin, and it is shaky when moving. It is obvious that the opponent has just experienced a war and is in a very bad state at this moment, and may even be on the verge of collapse. For this kind of gift that was delivered to his door, he chose to go straight for it. Boom! The channel of divine power was instantly set up, and his followers rushed out shouting. At the same time, his figure also appeared in the other party's kingdom of God. Wherever you look, there is yellow sand all over the sky. As he expected, the other party's kingdom was littered with corpses. Obviously he escaped after a great battle. It's your bad luck to meet me, hee. The son of God laughed softly, and his followers rushed in. They were a group of lizardmen. Their fighting ability was stronger than most beast followers and they were an intelligent race. Coupled with his powerful reproductive ability, this enabled him to win every battle in the past. Call. The lizardman stepped on the yellow sand and rushed into the kingdom of God. As the strong wind blew, the white bones buried under the yellow sand were faintly revealed. At the beginning, no one paid attention to this phenomenon. The appearance of some corpses is a very normal phenomenon, especially in an enemy area with little water resources, where animals often die of starvation and thirst. But as the lizardmen continued to go deeper, more and more bones appeared around them. Most of the bones were buried underground, with only a few exposed by the wind blowing through the yellow sand. Although some lizardmen were confused, they did not think much about it. There's no way they'll stop just because of some corpses. Strangely, until now, they have not encountered any resistance, just some eagles circling in the sky. The Son of God also continued to observe this place as his followers went deeper. In the enemy's kingdom of God, his divine sense was not very useful, so at this time he didn't know where the opponent's followers were hiding. Does the other party intend to keep hiding like this? The Son of God wondered in his heart, is it really meaningful to delay time like this? He silently guessed the other party's intentions, and suddenly felt a fluctuation in his mind. Someone is invading my kingdom of God. The Son of God was shocked. There was no new divine power channel connecting to his kingdom of God, which meant that the invaders came from here. So that's how it is. There was a flash of joy in the Son of God's eyes. It turned out that the other party was planning to launch a surprise attack on his kingdom of God. No wonder they hadn't found them. But it didn't matter. Did they really think that he was completely unprepared? With a flash of divine thought, his figure appeared in his own kingdom of God. I saw a group of people with naked upper bodies and blood-red lines all over their bodies fighting with his followers who were left in the kingdom of God. The strength is not bad, but that's all. He chuckled. The strength displayed by the other party could not pose much threat to him, and it would only take some time to eliminate them. Poor. Suddenly, in his perception, a thread of faith broke. The direction comes from the other party's kingdom of God. He didn't take it seriously at first, but then, the threads of faith broke one after another, and even connected into one piece in a very short time. What's going on? The momentary stinging sensation startled him. No longer caring about the battle here, he once again put his consciousness into the opponent's kingdom of God. Now, everywhere I look, there are only bones. Chapter 77. Rumble. As the alien race's kingdom of God was shattered, Monkai took back the channel of divine power. Fang Cang watched this scene not far away and felt relieved. The plan of the two was actually very simple. Monkai used his own kingdom of God to lure the Son of God to fight him. His condition was not good to begin with, so he didn't need to disguise himself deliberately. This was much less labor-intensive than looking for people one by one. Fang Cang left some undead and necromancers in Monkai's kingdom to help him kill enemies while slowly accumulating a group of undead. When the war is over, he will take the undead back, and by then their number may have increased several times. As for Fang Cang himself, due to continuous battles, the size of his kingdom of God is much larger than that of an ordinary son of God, and he looks not easy to mess with just from the outside. The same method is not applicable to him. The weaker sons of God will run away when they see him. So he chose to take the initiative and randomly picked some divine kingdoms nearby and attacked them directly. He didn't care how many people the other side had, because they didn't have as many as he did. He even spared no effort to kill those who were fighting in groups of 3 or 4. If you encounter the Son of God of the human race, help him defeat the enemy. If you encounter a foreign race, then let's all stay. So, in this mode, a strange scene appeared on the battlefield. A huge grey planet kept jumping up and down in a corner of the battlefield, attacking anyone it saw. After the fight, quickly look for the next opponent. The ochre-colored planet was floating back and forth on the edge, seemingly shaky, but actually it was always strong. As the kingdoms of God were shattered one by one, the yellow planet still remained in a half-dead state. At this time, new reinforcements could not come in, and the sons of God who were already on the battlefield were offline one after another, causing the corner of the battlefield where they were located to become empty from the outside to the inside. Countless fragments of the kingdom of God floated in the void, and this place seemed to have become a meteorite belt. Dense fragments of the kingdom of God would occasionally hit the kingdom of God and then be bounced away. Gradually, the number of kingdoms of God in this area became fewer and fewer. Some sons of God saw the situation here from a distance and felt that something was wrong, so they chose to take a detour. Finally, after waiting for 3 days and still no one was fooled, Monkai felt it was time to adjust his plan. He controlled the kingdom of God to move towards the battlefield. Along the way, large pieces of fragments of the kingdom of God connected together, which was a spectacular sight. At this time, this area has almost been cleared. Of course, this does not mean that they were all killed by Fang Cang. His achievements only accounted for a part of it. Most of it was caused by attacks between other sons of gods. However, since no new support arrived from this direction, some sons of God, after seeing the surrounding situation after the battle, chose to leave the area. This has resulted in the kingdom of God here becoming smaller and smaller. If viewed from a bird's eye view, it would be like a gap has been chewed out in the entire battlefield. Fang Cang. When Monkai found Fang Cang, he was fighting with several godsons of alien races. At this point they were already far away from their original position. Monkai saw 4 huge divine power channels connected to Fang Cang's kingdom of God, so without thinking, he directly controlled the kingdom of God and rushed over. A channel of divine power suddenly connected to Fang Cang's kingdom of God, and barbarian warriors rode out on various war beasts, followed closely by countless undead spirits. Call. As soon as Monkai stepped into Fang Cang's kingdom of God, he felt a little uncomfortable. This discomfort certainly did not come from himself, but was the emotion transmitted to him by his followers through the thread of faith. At this time, a long time had passed since he first met Fang Cang. During this period, both of them had experienced countless battles, and both their respective kingdoms of God and their followers had made great progress. But even so, the omnipresent aura in Fang Cang's kingdom of God still made his followers feel uncomfortable. He didn't know that this was because the death energy was too strong. After the kingdom of God had experienced several expansions, the death energy here had become extremely dense. In addition, there were dead water and a sea of bones that were constantly emitting death energy. Although Monkai couldn't see the deathly aura, he could still vaguely feel an uncomfortable atmosphere. If he continues to fight in this environment for a long time, the strength of his followers will inevitably be affected. As the barbarians went deeper and deeper, the situation they saw along the way did not seem to be as Monkai had imagined. Fang Cang was under siege. There are almost no signs of fighting here. You know, their current followers start at hundreds of thousands, and Fang Cang's undead souls have reached millions. It is impossible for a battle of this scale to leave no trace at all. The only possibility is Fang Cang was not under siege. It is very likely that he was besieging the 4 people on the opposite side. Monkai scratched his head and felt that he seemed to have found the reason. With Fang Cang's strength, if he faced an ordinary son of God, it would indeed be possible for him to be outnumbered. Can you feel the position of your master? Monkai turned his gaze to the necromancer who followed him. He was a short wizard named Dylan, and he was the leader here. The great barbarian god. Dylan bowed slightly to show respect. He knew that this barbarian god was a friend of his master, so he always behaved very politely. As the master's follower, I have no way of knowing the master's location. Dylan answered truthfully, silently feeling the atmosphere of home. It's better to be at home. In such a deathly environment, he can cast spells much more smoothly. Although there is also deathly energy in other divine kingdoms, the amount is too small after all, and he always feels uncomfortable. Hearing Dylan's answer, Monkai nodded and said no more. He did not call Fang Cang out, but ordered his followers to rush towards the enemy's divine power channel. Fang Cang must know that I have arrived. Rustle, rustle. Amidst the dense friction sounds, countless attacks fell on the undead giant. As large pieces of broken bones fell off, under the combination of the power of the dead, one undead after another appeared on the battlefield. Fang Cang watched this scene in the kingdom of God and nodded slightly. The undead composed of fragments rapidly gained strength in their bones due to the repair of a large amount of death energy. In just a moment, their bones became one whole and were no longer as vulnerable as in previous tests. After several adjustments, this ability of the undead giant finally became useful in combat. Fang Cang placed a piece of death crystal on each undead giant. While strengthening the undead giant, it would also repair the fallen fragments. This method undoubtedly enhanced the strength of the undead giant. He knew about Monkai's arrival, but he ignored it. Because at this moment there were 4 sons of God surrounding him and begging for mercy. Chapter 78. We can compensate you. In the kingdom of God, the 4 sons of God looked at the black-haired human in front of them with extremely complicated feelings. They originally came from the same civilization, but because of their average strength, they usually acted cautiously. A chance brought them together by coincidence, and by joining forces, they easily defeated a powerful son of God. This made them realize the benefits of joining forces against the enemy, so they began to advance and retreat together. During this period, with the combined strength of the four, all the enemies they encountered ended up in despair. While they gained a large amount of world power, they also became more and more courageous. No matter who he meets, he dares to fight. Even if he meets his own son of God, he will plunder him. Until this time he was accidentally dragged into the battlefield. They originally thought that with the strength of 4 people, they could fish in troubled waters, make a fortune and then retreat. But I didn't expect that I would hit a real wall this time. After the divine power channel was connected, the other party actually took the initiative to attack them. At first they didn't take it seriously, thinking that the other side wanted to burn their boats and concentrate their forces to attack one person first. It's not like they haven't encountered this kind of situation before. Usually the person being attacked would hold on for a while, and then wait for others to come to support them, and then the combined strength of the 4 of them would launch a fatal blow to the person. But this time, they were wrong. Since they were all in their own kingdoms, they were unaware of the situation of others. After being attacked, they defended according to past experience and waited for others to come to their support. However, after waiting for so long, almost half of their family members were killed or injured, and no support came. It was then that they realized something was wrong. So, some people took the time to visit other divine kingdoms to check. Only then did they realize that the other party had attacked the 4 of them at the same time. They thought they were the dependents of the enemy's main force, but they were only a quarter of their number. This discovery made several people numb instantly. There was no way to get support, and if they kept dragging it out like this, they would be dead, so they gathered together to discuss it. Surrender. Surrender decisively. The few of them had similar personalities, so the decision was made very decisively. Several people shouted directly in the kingdom of God, asking the other party to spare them. In order to express their sincerity, they even ordered their followers to give up the attack and just hide in a corner to defend. At this moment, Fang Cang was a little confused as he looked at the 4 people lying on the ground in the air opposite him. This was the first time he encountered an enemy that surrendered so easily, and for a moment he didn't know whether he should continue fighting them. He already knew the situation in each of the divine kingdoms, and all the enemy's followers had given up resistance. In that case, he did not take the opportunity to kill them all, but simply ordered the undead to surround them first. Fang Cang looked at the 4 people in front of him, holding his chin with his hand, thinking. The scene fell into silence for a moment. The 4 aliens didn't know what Fang Cang was thinking. Seeing that the other party hadn't spoken, they suddenly became anxious. As long as you are willing to let us go, we will do anything. A son of God said anxiously. He was afraid that the other party would send them all away if he was dissatisfied. By now, most of their family members had been killed or injured, so it wouldn't take much effort to kill all the remaining ones. What can you do? Fang Cang finally spoke. He didn't believe in the nonsense that if you let me go, I will reward you handsomely one day. His boss in his previous life had painted enough rosy pictures for him, and he would never believe such words again in this life. We were all adults, so we might as well come up with something practical. I can conquer cities for you. Hearing Fang Cang finally speak, a son of God hurriedly expressed his sincerity. No need. Fang Cang said expressionlessly. I can be your pioneer, said another son of God. Unnecessary. I can serve you. Fang Cang glanced at the son of God, thinking about how to make his death less painful. I can be your bait. No need, et. Fang Cang looked at the son of God fiercely. This seems to work. If 4 people call for support at the same time, their civilization should send more people to support them. This way, it would be better than him looking for them one by one. Thinking of this, Fang Cang suddenly smiled. On the road. After calming down a little, Fang Cang put on a kind expression and looked at the 4 people. Don't worry, I'm not the kind of person who loves killing. Yes, yes, you are right. The 4 of them nodded rapidly, with joy appearing on their faces. There seems to be a turning point. As long as the kingdom of God can be preserved, whatever you say is what matters. It's our first meeting, and I didn't prepare any gifts. After fighting for so long, your followers must be tired, right? I invited them to my kingdom of God for a rest. You don't mind, do you? Fang Cang spoke to himself with a gentle look in his eyes, as if he had met an old friend he hadn't seen for many years. I don't mind, I don't mind. The four of them wiped their sweat quietly, feeling that the road ahead was bleak. Then let's go. I'll show you around my kingdom of God. If the hospitality is not good enough, please forgive me. He. Buzz. Divine thoughts spread out, and a son of God shuttled through countless fragments of the kingdom of God, silently feeling the situation around him. 3 days ago, civilization suddenly sent him a support mission, and the information showed that 4 sons of God had fallen there. According to intelligence, the fighting there was extremely fierce and it would be difficult for an ordinary genius to complete the mission, so he was sent over. He became the son of God in the previous session and has now spent 100 years in the land where God descended. Although his talent is not high and the power of faith accumulates slowly, even so, after 100 years of accumulation, his strength can crush the current son of God. Half a year ago, civilization suddenly gave him the ability to freely control the kingdom of God, which made his integration progress of the kingdom of God advance by leaps and bounds. Now, as long as he absorbs 1 or 2 more world powers from the kingdom of God, he can ignite the divine fire. He placed all his hopes on this mission. Bang! A huge piece of God's kingdom fragment hit his God's kingdom and was immediately bounced away by the divine power. The place where he is currently is littered with fragments of the kingdom of God, which further illustrates the seriousness of the situation. No wonder the 4 of them couldn't escape even if they joined forces. He thought to himself that it seemed that the other party had encountered a powerful son of God, or was besieged by many people. But it doesn't matter. With his strength, he can easily deal with even 4 or 5 ordinary sons of gods. As the son of God of the previous generation, he still has this confidence. We're almost there. I hope the enemy hasn't escaped yet. Compared to rescuing the 4 people, he was more concerned about whether there was an enemy that could allow him to absorb the power of the world. Now he is very close to his target location. A moment later, 5 divine kingdoms, 1 large and 4 small, appeared in his perception. They are still alive. The Son of God was delighted. Looking at the scale of the other party's kingdom of God, its strength should not be too bad. Maybe the world power of this kingdom of God would be enough to allow him to ignite the divine fire. Moreover, these 4 people were lucky enough to hold out until he came to support them. Double happiness. The Son of God thought to himself, controlling the kingdom of God and rushing over. A huge channel of divine power was directly built on the opponent's kingdom of God. Hey, I'm coming in. The Son of God smiled evilly, and his figure appeared in the other party's kingdom of God. Chapter 79. In the divine country. Fang Cang was speechless as he looked at the pale-faced Son of God. Too weak. The enemy's followers were a kind of lamb-like people. There seemed to be quite a lot of them, and when they charged forward, it was a vast sea of white. When he saw this scene, he thought he had encountered a top-notch alien. Therefore, all the demons, undead giants, and others were arranged by him. Necromancers also hold the power of death in their hands, ready to respond to emergencies at any time. But in the end, as soon as they came into contact, before he could even exert any strength, the group of sheepmen collapsed on their own. The opponent's followers' faith did not seem to be solid, and they were also timid. Although there were many of them, when faced with more powerful undead, their first reaction was to run away. Fang Cang didn't know how the other party had managed to get to where he is today. Perhaps he had never encountered any powerful opponents, so his followers didn't have much ability to withstand pressure. This also led to the fact that the undead army almost didn't stop and almost sent the other side home in one wave. At this moment, the Son of God's face was pale, and his mind was unstable. If there was any more fluctuation, he would be cut off from the divine realm. Do you want to die? Fang Cang stared at the Son of God and said, behind him were endless undead spirits. Shen Ziyai shook his head repeatedly. Then call for backup. Fang Cang said this and turned to look at the 4 sons of God. You guys continue. Okay. The 4 sons of God acted obediently. After dealing with everything, Fang Cang spread his divine consciousness to the entire kingdom of God. At this time, the 5 sons of God were detained here by him, and some of their relatives were left behind as hostages, guarded by the undead. In the kingdom of God, 5 thick divine power channels connected his kingdom of God. Without his cooperation, several alien sons of God would have no way to leave. This is also a common problem in the Son of God stage. After they have complete control over the kingdom of God, they can choose to collapse part of the kingdom of God and leave forcibly. Although this process will cause great losses to the kingdom of God, it is better than the kingdom of God being destroyed. This won't work. Fang Cang thought to himself as he looked at the divine kingdoms of those alien races. As more and more people come to support him, he can't just leave them all behind like this, right? That way others can see the problem at a glance. One planet connects to more than a dozen divine kingdoms? Only a fool would go up and get beaten. We have to find a way to solve it. Fang Cang turned his gaze towards Monkai's kingdom of God, but then gave up the idea. Monkai is not in good condition, so let him move freely. The undead and necromancers that he left with him should be able to keep him safe. Hey? Fang Cang's eyes lit up. Yes, we can send the undead to their kingdom as a threat. In this case, even if the channel of divine power is disconnected, they dare not run too far. As long as there is the slightest movement, the undead remaining above will kill all their relatives on the spot. It doesn't matter if I can't kill them. I'm faster than them, so it won't be difficult to catch up with them. Thinking of this, Fang Cang flashed back to the side of several alien godsons. At his request, 2 sons of God returned to their own kingdom of God with some of their followers, along with some undead and necromancers. As the divine power channel was disconnected, the 2 began to move towards the deeper battlefield. Fang Cang asked them to stop after reaching a certain distance, and then send messages for help over and over again. Fang Cang was not afraid that they would play tricks when asking for help, so it didn't matter even if they told others the whole truth. The only one who could come to support him was the Son of God. At this stage, he had not encountered anyone who could pose a threat to him. If the other side sends a large number of sons of God to besiege us, we will be defeated if we have fewer people. Since there were more people, he called on other human godsons to capture them all in one fell swoop. Don't forget, there are more than just him and Monkai on this battlefield. If he just holds on for a while and waits for reinforcements to arrive, won't the other side be at his mercy? Fang Cang has taken everything into consideration. In this situation, he can be said to be invincible. Unless the other party abandons these people, then he would have no choice but to accept their world power with tears. Divine Realm. The land of human civilization. This is the gathering place and supply point for all human gods. It is also the meeting place of the true gods and the king of gods. The lowest level of humans who can come here are gods. All the resources in the divine realm, whether it is the blood essence of various followers, rare minerals, or weapons and armor used to equip followers, can be found here as long as you can afford it. In a corner of the civilized land, there is a huge temple, a place that only true gods can enter and exit. At this moment, several true gods gathered in the temple. In front of them, a huge light curtain was suspended in the air. On the light curtain, densely packed light spots were distributed at various positions, and some of them glowed red from time to time. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on one corner, which was almost covered with red spots of light, and occasionally a spot of light would suddenly disappear. Buzz! Suddenly, a wave of divine power arose. The woman who had kept her eyes closed finally opened them. There was a divine light flowing in her eyes, which was like a dream, making people feel that if they only looked into her eyes, they would be doomed to eternal damnation. This year, several talented sons of God have appeared. The woman spoke, her tone was unpleasant, and at first her voice seemed gentle as drizzle and breeze, but when you savored it carefully it seemed like the lewd music that could drive you crazy. Several people present turned their eyes to the woman, showing some interest in the Son of God she mentioned. At their level, they have already seen countless geniuses. Those who are considered extremely talented by ordinary people may just be considered ordinary people to them. It is difficult to see their specific talents at the Son of God stage. The real beginning is after becoming a god. But since the Dream Master has said so, their talents must be extraordinary. An old man with a long beard said with a smile. The Dream Lord is responsible for collecting information from the entire divine realm. As long as she wants, the gods below the true God will not have any secrets in front of her. The people present are the true controllers of human civilization and the top existences in the divine realm. In the era when there is no God King, their words can determine the direction of civilization. These people usually need to sit here most of the time and usually don't move around easily. A few new sons of God may be able to add some fun to them. What Siming said is absolutely right. Although these people are sons of gods, they have each displayed extremely rare talents. If they become gods, they will surely unleash greater potential. The dreamer opened his red lips slightly, and his tone was slightly respectful. Simon is in charge of life and death. He is the most senior god in civilization. The birth of all gods is closely related to him. At this point she no longer kept the secret, and with a wave of her hand, a divine power transformed into a curtain of light that appeared in front of everyone. A woman's figure appeared on the light screen. Chapter 80. In the temple. The Dream Master waved his hand and spread out a curtain of light. A woman's figure was projected in it. At this time, the woman was in a state of fighting against the enemy. She saw a huge divine power channel appear right in front of her, and countless orcs with wolf heads and human bodies rushed out of it. Her enemy was obviously also one of the geniuses of the alien race, and the number of werewolves had reached more than 300,000. Nearly half of them have even been completely transformed into beasts. They walk on 2 feet, their bodies are covered with thick grey hair, and they have a pair of claws that are larger than their heads and are visibly sharp. The woman's followers were a group of light balls whose shapes could not be seen clearly. They were scattered throughout the kingdom of God, and their figures appeared and disappeared from time to time. It seemed that they had no intention of going forward to resist the enemy. Just as all the werewolves were wreaking havoc in the kingdom of God, the woman moved. She just raised her hand and released a dazzling divine power, which seemed to be suspended in the air like the stars in the sky. At the same time, all the light balls in the kingdom of God began to flicker, as if responding to the woman's divine power. The next moment, countless stars in the sky fell towards the enemy, and the entire kingdom of God seemed to be raining light, like a dream and extremely beautiful. Those stars enveloped all the werewolves. They fell on the werewolves, splashing starlight, and then disappeared. It seemed to be just an illusory firework and did not cause any real harm. However, those light ball-like followers in the kingdom of God disappeared quietly at some point. A running werewolf gradually slowed down to walking, and then stopped. Then the second one, the third one. The entire werewolf team stopped advancing in this strange atmosphere, and remained indifferent no matter how their son of God called them. A faint divine thought swept across the werewolf team, and they seemed to have received some kind of order. In an instant, all the werewolves suddenly changed direction and rushed towards the enemy's divine power channel. The scene ended abruptly here, and the subsequent battle scenes were not played. But it was obvious that the group of werewolves were controlled by the goddess. They turned against their own side and instantly became the enemy of the enemy. Under such circumstances, the alien son of God was doomed to fail. The woman won very easily. I made a list for this year's Sons of God, and I put this girl named Xinjiao at the top. The dreamer turned around and looked at the few people, and a hint of playfulness flashed across his face as he spoke. Pure spirit followers are relatively rare. Their ability is to possess and control the enemy. If that's all, their strength is only average. Although they are immune to physical damage, they can still be hurt by energy attacks. However, with the perfect combination of the Son of God's innate divine skills, we can send them directly into the enemy's body. This way, they can avoid all attacks and face the enemy in an undamaged state. This combination is indeed hard to beat in the same level. Sima Ming nodded, acknowledging the talent of this Son of God. This kind of innate ability actually has nothing to do with the level and strength of the gods, but it is a rare characteristic that is revealed from the very beginning. This characteristic allows the gods to maintain a certain advantage at any stage. Her strength is not the best among all the previous heavenly prodigies. She has some tricks in her skills, but if she doesn't have any means of restraint, it will be difficult for ordinary sons of God to deal with her. A burly man with his upper body naked suddenly spoke. He had short spiky hair and his eyes seemed to contain the sun and the moon. What Dong Jun said is very true, but as a woman, I still hope she can be worthy of the position of the chief. Menzua glanced at Dong Jun and knew what he meant. Dong Jun is in charge of killing and fighting. Relatively speaking, he prefers the kind of gods who can play a huge role on the front battlefield. Putting Xinjiao first was selfish of her. Anyway, the list was just for her own amusement and to kill time. She didn't care what others thought of it, as long as she was happy. The light screen continued to project the image. This time, what emerged was a kingdom of God full of technology. The entire kingdom of God is undergoing transformation everywhere, with huge construction machinery shuttling back and forth. At this time, in a huge arsenal, as the machines were running, various mineral raw materials were collected, then processed and smelted into precision accessories and transported to the production line. With the operation of the mechanical arm, the parts were assembled one by one, and finally became a ferocious combat machine. And there are dozens of such production factories in the kingdom of God. A large number of combat machines are manufactured here every day. These machines will be deployed to various locations in the Kingdom of God, ready to join the battle at any time. All machines will be covered by an invisible grid signal, which is the command center for all machines and the real core of this Kingdom of God. Intelligent machinery. A creature that is half mechanical and half spiritual. They seem to have been transformed from a spirit state, and their appearance now resembles a suspended octopus. The octopus's brain is a transparent glass cover, with a misty creature living inside. At this time, under the mobilization of the intelligent machines, countless combat machines gathered from all over the Kingdom of God. The sound of machines running rang out in the Kingdom of God, and ever larger machines drove out from hidden underground passages. In just a few moments, millions of combat machines were lined up neatly. Different models, different shapes, so many machines gathered together, but there was no chaos. The whole process was orderly and the efficiency was terrifying. Buzz. Suddenly, a huge channel of divine power appeared. At the same time, with a deafening roar, all the machines started moving at the same time. The battle lasted only an hour. This speed is very rare in the battles of the Kingdom of God. The entire process of the battle was a complete crushing victory. Although their current combat technology was not very advanced, all the machines worked together precisely without any unnecessary movements and without causing any waste. They seemed to share a brain, and all commands were followed in unison. They were not afraid of pain or death, and would not retreat even if the attack was already in front of them. After the battle, this group of machines demonstrated their extremely efficient looting capabilities. Whether it was stone forests, mineral veins, water, soil, or animals, all usable resources were taken away. They utilize various resources to the extreme. The screen ends here. This time, several true gods nodded slightly, showing great approval for this son of God. The other party's talent can indeed be called monstrous. What's his name? Dong Jun, who was sitting next to him, had shining eyes. This son of God was exactly the type he admired. The Dream Lord looked at Dong Jun. She had expected his reaction. As a true god in charge of killing and a big shot in the military, the talent of this son of God was indeed suitable to be under his command. The dreamer had no intention of keeping people in suspense and started introducing directly. His name is Mo Chen, and he is the descendant of the true god. Chapter 81. His name is Mo Chen, and he is the descendant of the true god. The Dream Master spoke, and as his voice fell, the figure of a long-haired man appeared on the light curtain. General Zhen Shen Mo is his father. He originally belonged to your military. Dong Jun looked at the son of God on the light curtain and nodded slightly, his interest in his eyes not diminished at all. General Mo is a true god under his command. The two have known each other for many years and are naturally very familiar with each other. General Mo gave birth to a good son. Everyone present nodded. As true gods, they certainly know each other. Mo Chen's performance has undoubtedly won everyone's recognition. As long as he continues to grow smoothly, the human race will surely have another powerful general. Mo Chen's followers are not ordinary spirits. He seems to have transformed them. In the god realm, there are still many gods who are developing in the direction of science and technology, but it is extremely rare to see someone like him who has completely abandoned flesh and blood life. Siming stroked his beard and turned to look at the man in the corner. The man had white hair combed back his head, but his face was very young. He sat there quietly and did not express any opinions from beginning to end. Liu Wu, what do you think? The white-haired man Liu Wu is in charge of the law and is also the person who has the most thorough research on all the dependents. In human civilization, his views on the dependents represent absolute authority. He doesn't need flesh and blood. Liu Wu spoke, his voice was hoarse, like the roar of an animal. His innate divine skill should be something like soul-giving. With his innate divine skill as the core, he has built a platform for all his followers to communicate without hindrance. He himself is the brain of all his followers. Flesh and blood life has no meaning to him. But at present, the number of his true followers is very small. Those combat machines are not considered his followers. This makes it extremely difficult for him to accumulate faith. Without sufficient divine power support, his development speed will also be affected. Hearing this, everyone nodded. The innate divine skills of soul empowering are not necessarily very strong, but they are definitely rare. The common feature of this type of divine skills is that they can all give the target intelligence, but the conditions required for soul empowering different divine skills are also different, which is also an important factor in determining the potential of the gods. What affects Mo Chen's development is not only resources, but also his divine power. Although he can now collect the power of the world through fighting, the growth of divine power cannot be achieved overnight. In this case, even if the kingdom of God is completely integrated, he will still need some time to accumulate faith before he can ignite the divine fire. But even so, Mo Chen's potential is visible to the naked eye. Not everyone has the ability to perfectly utilize all resources. Moreover, as long as there are enough resources, the number of those combat machines can increase rapidly, which ensures him sufficient endurance and allows him to fight continuously on the battlefield without worrying about the loss of his followers. His real breakthrough period should be when he becomes a god. Dong Jun sighed. By then, he will be able to learn a lot of scientific research techniques in the civilization. As long as he is given some time to digest them, those techniques will become his foundation. Everyone agrees with this. Technology is the easiest to copy. As long as there is detailed information, a lot of knowledge is common. Although some knowledge may not be fully digested and absorbed due to the different development directions of each person, the two categories of mechanical manufacturing and war weapons manufacturing alone can bring about earth-shaking changes to his strength. This type of followers is also the easiest to create void combat units. They are indeed talented. Given time, these two sons of God will be able to stand on their own. In the divine world, some sons of gods with extraordinary talents appear every year. As they grow up, they will gradually become the cornerstone of civilization. The people present here still pay attention to the Son of God every year, and they will not be stingy with their praise for some good seedlings. If there is a need, it is necessary to provide certain support. There is another Son of God whose talent is no less than the first two, and he is currently on the battlefield. After hearing what the Dream Master said, several people looked interested. The talents of the two sons of God just now are considered excellent among all the sons of God in history. Usually, one with this kind of talent only appears once every few years. I didn't expect so many of them to suddenly appear this year. The human race is flourishing. Siming sighed, then turned his gaze to the light curtain. It was a very inconspicuous planet. From the outside, the entire planet appears grey in color. In the planet, a thick, lingering fog spread over the entire world. The corrupt earth, the ink-black river, and the withered grass and trees. Everything exudes the breath of death. This is like a world without living beings. In a huge lake, beneath the dark surface, countless corpses are buried, and grey mist like snakes permeates the water. By the lake, a group of people in black robes gathered there, with their heads bowed, chanting something in a low voice. The murmurs sounded like the devil's whispers, making the whole world seem eerie. Wow! Ripples suddenly appeared on the silent lake surface. The ripples spread out little by little, gently colliding with each other to form a tiny wave on the lake surface. A flash of paleness passed by at the bottom of the lake. More and more ripples appeared, and the waves derived from them became higher and higher, as if a demon from the abyss was quietly awakened, and a flesh and blood hand clung to the shore of the lake. It slowly stood up. It was a skeleton. Empty eye sockets, exposed teeth, and a faint metallic luster on the pale skeleton. More skeletons stood up and walked out of the lake one by one, more and more, as if endless. The same scene appears in different places. In the dark lakes, countless undead souls were awakened one after another. Accompanied by dense friction sounds, they walked out from their sleeping places. The white torrent formed by countless undead souls began to converge in one direction from all locations. In the sky, under the cover of the thick fog, countless evil spirits roared out, hovering in the air, staring at every passing creature with malicious eyes. Boom! The earth trembled slightly, and huge undead giants appeared in the distance, looking down at the entire world. All creatures seemed extremely small in front of them. Necromancers in black robes also came out one after another, riding various undead creatures, and following behind them was an endless army of undead. At this moment, the world is no longer dead silent. The demons are gradually awakening, this place has become a hell for the living. At the same time, this is also the abyss of the dead. Chapter 82. In the temple. The true gods looked at the picture on the light screen. Undead giants rose from the ground one after another. Countless evil spirits flew past, wailing in the air. The wave of bones swept over all living things and the living retreated. The necromancer resurrects corpses and summons the dead. Scenes flashed by, and one kingdom of God after another was shattered. The Dream Master seemed to pay more attention to this Son of God, fully displaying his terrifying fighting ability. Until finally, a black-haired young man appeared. The narrow eyes, the dark purple divine patterns, and even the hint of madness that flashed in his eyes whenever he fought were all captured perfectly. The screen ends. The Dream Master put away the light curtain and turned to look at everyone. This time she didn't wait for everyone to speak and introduced herself first. This son of God is called Fang Cang. He is the son of God I am most optimistic about so far. Everyone has seen his situation. His ability to snowball is terrifying. At this stage, I believe no one can surpass him. Fang Cang's innate magical skills are similar to Mo Chen's, both are of the spirit infusing type, but the difference is that the conditions required for his spirit infusing are very low, which allows him to have extremely strong combat endurance. The two are in similar situations. Both can summon a large number of followers at a very low cost. Their ability in frontal combat cannot be determined for the time being, but if they encounter a continuous battle, his advantage will be greater than Mo Chen's. Hearing this, everyone nodded slightly, agreeing with her statement. After all, compared to Fang Cang's ability to obtain materials anywhere, Mo Chen still needs to process and combine the materials before he can participate in the battle. At this time Liu Wu also spoke. According to my observation, he has a very deep understanding of his innate divine skills. The followers shown in the picture should all be created by him through his innate divine skills. The same ability in the hands of different people will produce completely different results. This is something that everyone recognizes, and different understandings will certainly produce different effects. Fang Cang created the undead, and the demons through different uses of his innate magical skills, and created the necromancer through divine gift. The appearance of the undead giant is an advanced use of his innate magical skills. These are clearly reflected in the picture. Perhaps everyone does not understand the specific process for the time being, but there is no doubt that Fang Cang's development of his innate skills is far beyond his peers. His special talent coupled with a deep understanding of his abilities have made him so powerful that he can surpass his peers today. I found something very interesting. Siming's voice rang out, attracting everyone's attention. Those people wearing black robes should all be intelligent creatures. Their belief in Fang Cang is very strong, even fanatical. It is rare to see all of them are fanatical believers. Indeed, even those spirits are included. Although their states are somewhat confused, they are undoubtedly conscious, and their beliefs are also extremely firm. Liu Wu nodded in agreement, saying that these details could be seen when the necromancer cast his spell. Only with an extremely firm belief could the god-given abilities be brought into play to their greatest effect. What they didn't know was that Fang Cang himself hadn't paid much attention to this issue. The necromancers would worship and pray to his statue every day. Perhaps this was also a way to increase their faith. The faith of the demons is even stranger. Rather than having a firm belief, it is more like they are afraid of Fang Cang. The fear that came from the bottom of his heart forced the demon spirit to strengthen his faith. They retain consciousness both before and after death, but they don't have any fond memories of their own gods. I want this son of God. Dong Jun, who had been silent all this time, spoke at this time and said the same words as Mo Zhang had said at the beginning. He's perfect for the military. He recalled everything the other party had shown in the picture just now, his eyes lit up, he was so interested in Fang Cang. This kind of innate ability is simply born for fighting. When it comes to fighting, of course the military, which is in charge of killing, is more suitable. Unexpectedly, I got 2 surprises in a row today. Mo Chen's performance was good enough, and his father was a military man. When the time comes, I just need to talk to General Mo. As for Fang Cang, he is still alone now, so he must act as soon as possible. After hearing Dong Jun's words, everyone showed different attitudes. My law department is also suitable for him. Liu Wu said calmly, his voice still hoarse, but as shocking as the roar of thousands of beasts. In that case, my Tianzhu Academy is also suitable for him. The dreamer smiled, and it was as if hundreds of flowers were in full bloom, like a dream, and everyone was in a trance. Put away your divine power. Dong Jun suddenly became a little annoyed, and the sun and the moon rotated in his eyes, seeming to be born and die. Aren't these people making trouble? Your law department is in charge of law and mainly solves internal problems of the human race. The opportunities for fighting are relatively few, so this is barely appropriate. But why are you from Tianzhu Yuan causing trouble? Should a combat genius be asked to collect intelligence? How to collect? Tie the guy up, beat him up and then ask directly? Is this reasonable? My law department has the responsibility to supervise the 3 armies during wartime. We cannot do this without strong strength. I think Fang Cang is quite suitable. Lu Wu continued to speak, his voice was indifferent, but as he spoke, the shadows of thousands of beasts appeared faintly behind him. It was as if all the beast spirits in the world could see their prototypes in it. You. Hearing this, several people stopped at the same time and looked at Lu Wu in surprise. He is still the son of God. The Dream Master was surprised, but he also restrained his divine power and became an ordinary person. Not just anyone can be a military supervisor. During wartime, the military supervisor must monitor all personnel participating in the war. From ordinary soldiers to military leaders, all of them must fully cooperate with the military supervisor. Their power is enormous. It can be said that in some aspects, the power of a military supervisor during wartime is comparable to that of a marshal in the army. Anyone who can hold this position, regardless of his or her identity, must have the ability to win the support of others. The gods in the army will not obey the orders of anyone other than their own superiors. The power of this position is not only given by status, but also gained through strength. You think so highly of this kid? Do you want to make an exception for him? Dong Jun also restrained his emotions at this time and looked at Luo meaningfully. Generally speaking, those who serve as military supervisors are all true gods, or at least gods with top strength, and Fang Cang is still the son of God at this time. Even though he is extremely talented, he still needs time to improve his strength bit by bit after becoming a god. Is there something I don't know? Dong Jun couldn't help but feel confused. I won't make an exception. I will give him time to grow, but I am optimistic about this guy. Lu Wu's words remained calm, but made everyone even more confused. I just knew about his situation earlier. Lu Wu didn't say this. He thought of the information reported by Du Xing and Kang Yang. Du Xing was his former student. And Kang Yang was the previous military inspector. Chapter 83. There's no need to argue. It's up to Fang Cang to decide where he wants to go when the time comes. In the temple. Just as everyone was pondering the meaning of Lu Wu's words, Siming spoke. Everyone still respects Siming. So they all stopped discussing, and no one knew what they were thinking in private. After seeing everyone seated, Siming stood up. The three sons of God have each shown different talents. There is no doubt that their future achievements will be great. However, for now, the most important thing is to develop the kingdom of God and enhance its strength. If you have any ideas, you can send someone to contact them after they become gods. Whether it's support in terms of resources or guidance in terms of experience, they are worth it. But now, let's get down to business. Siming spoke very slowly, and every word was clearly heard by everyone. There was nothing unusual about him, he looked just like the ordinary old man next door. There are already thousands of sons of God participating in the battle on the battlefield. This is a great opportunity for us. After hearing Siming's words, everyone turned their attention to the light curtain covered with red dots again. In a corner of the light curtain, there were more than 300 red light spots densely gathered, and each light spot represented a human son of God who was fighting. They cannot ignore the rules of the land of God's descendants, but they can use the power of the King of God to locate each son of God. This is why the patrol team can receive support missions. Although there is currently no way to determine the exact number of alien sons of gods, based on the intelligence sent back from the front line and the proportional analysis of the sons of gods of various civilizations, we can still roughly estimate the number of people participating in the war. Go and make the arrangements. According to the previous plan, this time we should be able to make them feel pain for a while. After saying this, Siming closed his eyes and said no more. The three true gods looked at each other, nodded, and then got busy. A place of civilization. As several huge divine thoughts rose into the sky, commands began to be transmitted towards the place where the gods descended. The place where God descended. On the battlefield. On that grey planet, there are still 3 divine power channels connected. Not long after the alien god's son sent out a call for help, another god's son from the previous generation arrived. This time the son of God was a little stronger, but he was soon impressed by his strength and was willing to be under his command. At this time, the number of sons of God captured by Fang Cang has reached 6. The 6 sons of God sent out a message for help at the same time, and the other civilizations seemed to have already known the situation here. Thus, the number of sons of God who came to support again reached 8. Led by a son of God from the previous term, the 8 sons of God did not waste any time and directly launched an attack on Fang Cang. The other party should have known about his situation, and this time they planned to use their power to overwhelm him and solve him on the spot in one go to prevent him from snowballing again. Fang Cang was also under a lot of pressure in this battle. With the supplies sent to him by the 6 sons of God, the number of his undead souls has exceeded 5 million. This number is already comparable to that of most of the previous sons of God. Although these newly born undead have not been soaked in stagnant water and their strength has been slightly reduced, they have the advantage of large numbers. Moreover, Fang Cang has already mastered the method of creating undead giants. When faced with an emergency, he can expend his divine power and directly transform himself into an undead giant. But this time, his enemy has surpassed him in the number of his followers. The coalition army composed of 8 sons of God has nearly 6 million followers. Every son of God is a genius, and their followers are equally powerful. This resulted in the undead army being almost defeated at the first contact. At the same time, the 3 sons of God who were taken captive by him seemed to see the hope of victory when they saw this situation. At the same time as the 8 sons of God attacked, as if they had discussed it beforehand, all their captured dependents also simultaneously launched an attack on the undead guarding them. This made Fang Cang completely annoyed. So, he personally took action to awaken the corpses stored in the Sea of Bones. Not much, just over 3 million. This was the fortune he had accumulated over the years, originally intended to be used after he became a god. But the current situation does not allow him to keep a low profile any longer. No more pretending. I'm laying my cards on the table. I actually have 8 million dependents. For Fang Cang, this battle is all about the best troops. Demons, undead giants, and necromancers all went to the battlefield. At the same time, the 8 million undead, who were the main force, were divided into 8 directions to face the enemy respectively. At this time, the results of the necromancers' training finally showed. In the case of fighting on multiple fronts, Fang Cang was unable to command the overall situation, and all battles depended on the on-the-spot performance of each necromancer. They cooperated with each other according to what they had learned in their daily life, and each was responsible for the battle in a certain area. Just like that, after a protracted battle, Fang Cang finally won the victory. At the same time, 8 more prisoners were captured. However, this battle did not bring him much benefit. After a great battle, the undead suffered heavy losses, and the newly summoned undead were not strong. This was the result of Monkai seeing the situation here in the middle of the battle and rushing to support. Otherwise, he would have completely lost money this time. Fang Cang's anger suddenly rose. So, he sent the 3 sons of gods who had dared to resist before directly back to the realm of gods. Now, all the sons of God were obedient. The 8 captives succumbed to the tyranny of the overlord of the dead and stood aside, obediently sending out distress signals over and over again. There are 3 more, still connected to Fang Cang's kingdom of God as before. But this time, Fang Cang had been waiting for 10 days. The other side did not send any support during this period. He now has 11 sons of God as captives, 8 of whom are contemporary geniuses. The other civilization will not give up so quickly, right? Fang Cang muttered to himself. Now, if we don't count Monkai, the number of undead in his hands has reached 9 million, but more than half of them were newly summoned recently. These undead souls had been thrown into the stagnant water by Fang Cang to soak. In order to speed up the progress, he even threw a lot of death crystals into the stagnant water. The purpose is to better cope with the next battle. But no one came after waiting for a long time. At this time, Fang Cang had a bad feeling. The possibility of the other party giving up these sons of God is not great, so the only answer left is they are planning a big move. The other party has realized that a few sons of God coming here is equivalent to giving benefits. If they come to support again this time, the number and strength of the sons of God will definitely not be what it is now. Thinking of this, Fang Cang suddenly panicked. He hasn't reached the level of invincibility yet. Although a son of God of the same level can fight against multiple opponents at once, if the gap between the 2 sides is too great, then he will have no chance of snowballing at all. So what to do? Call someone. Fang Cang immediately decided to ask for support from the civilization. There are quite a few human sons of God nearby, so we should be able to make it in time. In fact, by the time he realized his situation, it was already too late. Just when he was about to exit the divine realm and use his bracelet to send a message for help. Almost at the same time, several strange huge planets broke into his perception. And behind them, there are more planets. Dozens of alien gods surrounded them from all directions. Chapter 84. The 5 previous sons of God, led dozens of the most talented sons of God, surrounded Fang Cang from all directions. When they entered Fang Cang's perception, the distance was already very close. In this situation, if he wanted to escape, he could only leave from the direction of the battlefield behind. But now there are still 3 foreign sons of God hanging on his kingdom of God. Without their cooperation, he could not leave. Even if he killed all their relatives and destroyed the kingdom of God, it would still take time. Fang Cang had planned everything, but he didn't expect the other party to be so cruel. After testing with 2 groups of support, they directly sent out so many sons of God to surround and kill him. I was careless. Fang Cang was a little annoyed. He had taken it for granted, hoping that the alien races would send support one by one to help him gain experience. The determination and wisdom of a civilization cannot be underestimated. He had no better idea at this moment. After quickly assigning combat tasks to all his followers, he decisively logged off. He cannot communicate with the outside world in the place where God descends, and now he can only use his bracelet to send support messages in the God realm. And because of the 100 times time difference, when 1 minute passes here, more than an hour has passed in God's realm. Now that time was running out, Fang Cang did not make any unnecessary moves. After returning to the God realm, he endured the dizziness caused by jet lag, and immediately probed his divine sense into the bracelet. After sending a message for help, he immediately returned to the kingdom of God. The whole process took only a dozen seconds, but during this period of time, the distance between him and those alien godson became much closer. I hope I can hold on a little longer. At this time, Fang Cang could only attribute his fate to the gods. In this situation, Monkai can only come to deliver food, and ordinary support is completely useless. Only a large number of human godsons can take action at the same time to resist them. Although there are many humans nearby, can they really spare so many people to support him at the same time? Fang Cang was skeptical about this. He was pessimistic at this time. FK, this is too much. As he thought of this, his divine thoughts spread out. In order to avoid being stabbed in the back when a fight broke out, he ordered the undead to kill all the captured alien relatives. The struggle between civilizations is like this. If he was not strong enough, he would have been beaten back to the realm of gods when he first met the 4 sons of gods. Besides, he never promised to let them go from the beginning to the end. Boom 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 boom. 11 kingdoms of God were shattered at the same time. The debris was flying everywhere, the scene was quite spectacular. The undead souls who remained in the alien kingdom also died. Fortunately, their number was small and it had little impact on the overall situation. Fang Cang was determined to burn his boats at this point. Even if it meant the destruction of the kingdom of God, he would drag a few more people down with him. At the same time, seeing that the 11 divine kingdoms were all destroyed, the speed of those alien races actually increased by another 3 points. Without the restrictions of the kingdom of God, Fang Cang regained his freedom. He immediately changed direction and started to escape. At this point, the distance between the 2 sides is already very close. Perhaps it will only take a moment to enter the range of the divine power channel. At that time, Fang Cang will no longer be able to escape. At this point, the grey planet was fleeing frantically in front, and dozens of divine kingdoms were chasing it madly. As they chased and fled, the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Although Fang Cang's kingdom of God has grown very fast after several upgrades, those previous sons of God who have stayed in the divine realm for 100 years are faster than him. At this point, he was already going at full speed, approaching the center of the battlefield with all his might. He passed by one warring kingdom of gods after another, but did not encounter a human son of God who could spare a hand to help him. The alien godsons behind him only had eyes for him at this moment, and ignored the other godsons. Is it necessary to have such great hatred? Fang Cang ran while cursing. Isn't it just to kill a dozen of you sons of God? I'll dare again next time. As the pursuit continued, the distance between the 2 sides was getting closer and closer. At this time, Fang Cang could even vaguely see the situation in the other party's kingdom of God through his divine sense. Just when they were about to touch, in front of Fang Cang, a large piece of fragments of the kingdom of God suddenly appeared. At this critical moment, Fang Cang was stunned. It was a sight he had never seen before. In the void, there were so many fragments of the kingdom of God that they could be described as covering the sky and the sun. The densely packed fragments of the kingdom of God filled his entire vision. Before this, the most fragments of the kingdom of God he had seen were only a meteorite belt. And at this moment, the fragments here can even form a huge galaxy. He didn't know how many kingdoms of God needed to be destroyed to achieve such an effect. Anyway, as long as he looked, there was no complete planet in existence. Bang! As a fragment hit the kingdom of God, it was followed by an extremely dense series of collisions. Ripples appeared in the kingdom of God, and the divine power always protected the kingdom of God from harm. Fang Cang felt like he was forcing his way out of a path with the kingdom of God. This undoubtedly greatly limited his progress. This delay allowed the Son of God behind to completely catch up with Fang Cang. Boom! The divine power channel was built in an instant. Since both kingdoms of God were still moving at high speed, inertia caused them to maintain a forward-moving posture. Countless fragments of the kingdom of God hit the kingdom of God one after another, but had no effect on its interior. The moment the divine power channel appeared, countless alien races rushed out from it. What they are about to face is the army of undead that is all over the mountains. You have more people, I can't defeat you. At this time, Fang Cang's figure also appeared above the kingdom of God. Under the influence of divine thoughts, his voice resounded throughout the kingdom of God. Wow! As soon as the families of both sides met, they started a hand-to-hand fight. Countless undead were smashed to pieces in an instant, and the enemy's relatives were also covered in blood and flesh under the attack of the undead. But, you're alone now. Call! Demonic spirits roared out from the sky, and with their wails, hundreds of thousands of enemies were pinned to the spot. How dare you rush so fast? Bang! The bodies of the dead suddenly exploded, and amid screams, countless bone spurs pierced the enemies' bodies. Who gave you the courage? Boom! Undead giants rose from the ground, clearing a large blank area on the battlefield. Countless attacks fell on the undead giant, and large pieces of broken bones collapsed. With the integration of the power of the dead, those broken bones had formed new undead when they fell to the ground. Then pay some price. Buzz! The power of the dead souls in the sky fell to the ground. Amid the intensive friction sounds, countless corpses stood up behind the enemy. Chapter 85. In the Divine Country. The alien god's son was severely injured in the short time of contact with the undead. His followers number only 4 million, while his enemies have more than twice that number. I originally wanted to catch up with Fang Cang quickly and hold him back first, and then wait for the arrival of other sons of gods to destroy him in one go, but I didn't expect that the opponent's firepower would be so fierce. Only a short while had passed since the war began, and over 1 million of his family members had been killed or injured. The death of a large number of relatives in a short period of time also made the face of the alien son of God turn pale in an instant. You! The son of God appeared and looked at the battlefield in front of him with shock and anger. It was already incredible that the civilization sent so many sons of gods to rescue people this time. In his opinion, with so many people working together, no one could stop them. So he didn't think too much about it when he was chasing. However, now that they were fighting, he finally understood the significance of this arrangement. The opponent is too strong. Is this really a son of God? If there are not enough people, it would be like delivering food to the other party. Now, this human cannot run away, but at the same time he will also be severely injured. Thinking of this, the son of God felt a little regretful. Why did he run so fast? Wouldn't it be better to let others take the lead? Fortunately, all the pursuers were not very far away. Although he was heartbroken over the loss of his family, support finally arrived. Boom! Another divine power channel is connected to the kingdom of God. A large number of alien relatives rushed out. At the same time, following a few shocks, channels of divine power appeared one after another in the kingdom of God. The sons of God from the previous session arrived in time with a much faster speed. Countless followers rushed out from various passages and headed towards the battlefield. At this time, Fang Cang was surrounded by enemies on all sides, and they were like waves that submerged the entire kingdom of God. And those geniuses of foreign races who fell behind were now approaching the battlefield. Some of the faster ones have already connected the divine power channel to the back of the kingdom of the previous Son of God. The kingdoms of gods followed closely behind and crashed into them, with channels of divine power connecting to the front. In this way, a strange combination was formed with Fang Cang's kingdom of God as the apex and dozens of kingdoms of God connected in series behind it. They were like a huge tumor, moving through countless fragments of the kingdom of God. The huge volume brought about a larger contact area. Amidst the intensive collision sounds, ripples rose in the kingdom of God, and fragments of the kingdom of God were bounced around. The kingdom of God, having lost control, is still moving forward due to inertia. Everyone ignored this phenomenon. This is just a very common state. The speed of the kingdom of God will become slower and slower, and it may stop soon. The battlefield in the front is still in full swing. The proud sons of gods in the rear are commanding their followers, who are passing through one kingdom of gods after another and rushing forward. Just when everyone concentrated their forces to attack Fang Cang, suddenly, the intensive collision sounds disappeared. The kingdom of God broke out of the debris area. Although there are still some fragments of the kingdom of God ahead, they are no longer as dense as before. This small change did not attract everyone's attention. A son of God who was hanging at the end arrived late. He was slow and had been following behind everyone else. Now he finally caught up with the main group. At the same time, he also saw the scene behind the debris area. Quick! Shen Zai stared blankly ahead, forgetting what to do at this moment. Quick! His body was shaking unconsciously, but he didn't care. The huge fear made it difficult for him to concentrate for a while, and only a sporadic voice came out. At the end of the team, those sons of God who had not yet joined the battle also noticed his abnormality. Just as everyone was about to ask, they also saw the scene in front of them. At the same time, everyone was stunned. The look of fear gradually grew in his eyes. As for the son of God who came at the beginning, he no longer cared about the task at hand. While the divine power channel had not yet been connected, he decisively braked the car, then turned around and rushed back the way he came without looking back. The speed was actually 3 points faster than when he came. At the same time, a divine thought came rolling in along with his voice, and was transmitted to a far distance. Run! Buzz! At the same time, several God's sons who were stunned in the back also reacted and began to panic and mobilize their followers to retreat. The entire team in the Kingdom of God was divided into two groups at this moment. One group of people have not realized that something is wrong and are still rushing forward, while another group of sons of gods who are left behind are gathering all their followers and rushing back to their own kingdom of gods. They want to escape too. Run! In the kingdom of God, everyone who was fighting also heard that voice. At this moment, Fang Cang was madly exerting his divine power, and of course he had no time to pay attention to that voice. There are already more than 15 million alien family members on the field. This does not include the geniuses who are on their way. Fang Cang has completely given up at this point. In 100 years, I will be a hero again. Although losing the original kingdom of God may have a great impact on future development, it doesn't matter. With the power of the undead, he has the confidence to transform any kingdom of God into a new abyss. Anyway, my kingdom of God is gone, so you guys can't expect to have an easy life. Boom! The undead giants collapsed one by one and turned into countless undeads, while at the same time new undead giants stood up. Here, countless lives are dying every moment, and the rising death energy has already covered the entire kingdom of God. Fang Cang's followers were of course more powerful in such an environment, while the enemy's followers were greatly affected. If the difference in numbers between the two sides was not so great, Fang Cang might have been able to launch a counterattack by taking advantage of the geographical location. But there aren't so many ifs. Fang Cang had already made plans to fight to the death. He focused all his attention on the battlefield and was completely unaware of the situation outside the battlefield. On the other hand, after hearing the voice, the alien god's son was confused, but he still took the time to take a look. But after just a quick glance, the man quickly came back. At the same time, his relatives ignored the casualties and quickly began to evacuate. What are you doing? A son of God said angrily. Escaping from the battlefield is a big taboo. Run! The son of God went into his own kingdom of God without looking back. You! In his anger, he didn't know what the other party saw, and he didn't care about the battle in front of him. His figure instantly appeared outside the kingdom of God. Then he crawled back in. The divine power channel is still connected, we can't run away. The angry voice resounded throughout the kingdom of God, and even the fighting followers paused for a moment. Now everyone realized that something must have happened outside. As God's thoughts moved, several people flashed out of the kingdom of God one after another. At the same time, appearing in front of them was a scene that they would never forget in their lives. The huge kingdoms of God filled their entire vision like the sky blocking out the sun. Each kingdom of God is extremely large. Such a kingdom of God, the number reaches tens of thousands. Chapter 86. under the watchful eyes of several gods from other races. Tens of thousands of huge kingdoms of God are advancing towards this side. Every kingdom of God is no smaller than them in size. On the roads these divine kingdoms passed through, all the divine kingdoms they encountered were shattered into pieces in a very short time. They were like a swarm of locusts passing through, and at this moment, they were devouring all the enemies in front of them with unstoppable force. What's this? A son of God from an alien race's expression changed drastically and he cried out in surprise. At this moment, everyone panicked. In this disaster-like scene, they feel so small and helpless at this moment. What to do? They hurried back to the kingdom of God, and several sons of God from other races gathered together to anxiously discuss countermeasures. Even the son of God who was about to leave at the beginning came back. He was just overwhelmed by fear and forgot the cruel fact that they could not leave because they were connected to the kingdom of God. Why don't we talk to this human and ask him to cooperate with us and leave? A son of God expressed his thoughts. I think it's okay. He probably doesn't know what's going on outside yet. If we let him go this time, he should agree. Another son of God echoed, looking towards the direction of the battlefield. The battle was still going on at this time. Although the number of their followers far exceeded that of the enemy, the combat power of this human's followers was not bad. In addition, new undead were constantly summoned, and the battle situation came to a stalemate for a while. Their original plan was to gather everyone's strength and not give the other side any chance to resist. However, those geniuses and sons of gods are now busy escaping, and they alone cannot capture this human in a short time. As they had come to the divine realm 100 years ago, they had never imagined that although they were both sons of God, the gap in strength would be so great. Is this the strength of a top-level genius? He looked at the battle in front of him and thought about those people who had come to the divine realm at the same time as him. There must have been some geniuses among them. I wonder what kind of strength those people have now. Human. The rolling divine thoughts resounded throughout the kingdom of God, and a son of God from an alien race appeared. We suddenly had an emergency. You're lucky. We'll let you go this time. Withdraw the passage. As soon as the words fell, all the sons of God felt themselves blushing. It's impossible to leave the battlefield in the middle of a fight, but they couldn't think of any good reason, so they had to go ahead. Time is running out, and those people will be here soon. As sons of God, they have no speed advantage. They can only hope that the other party will agree quickly so that they will have time to evacuate. Swish! Fang Cang's figure also appeared on the battlefield. He looked at the Son of God expressionlessly without saying a word. The Son of God felt a little uncomfortable being stared at, and in order to ease the atmosphere, he spoke in a timid tone. Don't be ungrateful. If it weren't for the sudden emergency, you wouldn't be able to escape this time. As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to feel that the momentum was not enough, so he continued to add. We have support behind us. If you continue to delay, you will be dead when they arrive. Do you think you are very smart? Fang Cang said this, looking at the other person as if he were a fool. He had just seen the other party's series of reactions. Although he was not clear about the situation outside for the time being, it was obvious that something must have happened that made them rush to escape. The other party could actually come up with such a lame excuse at this time. Fang Cang admired and laughed at him. What's the hurry? Did your wives give birth to children at the same time? You can come as you like, and leave as you like. What do you think this place is? The Son of God was about to speak when he was interrupted by Fang Cang. Did you buy tickets when you came in? Who will be responsible for the loss of so many of my followers? We can take responsibility. Unnecessary. Fang Cang shook his head and sneered. You can't afford it. Hearing this, the foreign godsons all looked extremely ugly, and it seemed that the other party was not prepared to cooperate with them at all. In this way, when those people arrive, they will have no chance. They had all survived 100 years and were about to light the sacred fire, but an accident happened at this moment. Everyone's heart is filled with resentment and hatred towards this human being. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here. If it weren't for you, how could we face such a crisis? At this time, the eyes of the sons of God were filled with despair and anger. In that case, then don't leave. The eyes of a son of God were filled with madness, and a huge divine consciousness surged out. He gave orders to all his followers to kill the other party at all costs. When others saw this, they were also angry that the other party didn't know what was good for them. We have low talents and don't have much of a future. It's worth it to be able to drag a top-level genius with us. Are you worthy? Fang Cang's indifferent voice sounded, and at this moment his eyes were replaced by endless coldness. I seem to have said, who gave you the courage? Why do you think you can control me with just these few people? Just by coming to the divine realm 100 years earlier than me. At this moment, Fang Cang was no longer paying attention to the battlefield below. He just used a calm voice to vent his inner anger. Why haven't those geniuses come yet? You guys want to die with me? Hee hee. 100 years ago, you were trash. Now, you still. It's garbage. The merciless taunts, one sentence after another, pierced the hearts of every son of God from a foreign race. Having survived a full 100 years, they thought they had enough reason to be proud in front of the contemporary son of God. However, reality ruthlessly shattered their self-esteem. Even though it has been leading for 100 years. But garbage is always garbage. Every word seemed to turn into a giant hand, slapping them hard in the face. The faces of the sons of God were as gloomy as water, and Fang Cang disappeared into the air after leaving a few words. Kill. Like the last madness. All the alien relatives were fighting desperately under the orders of the sons of God. They are no longer cautious, and they don't even care about their own safety. They just want to cause more harm to the other party. This change did indeed bring greater losses to Fang Cang, but their own casualties also increased exponentially. This actually gave Fang Cang the opportunity to summon more undead. As one side gained strength while the other lost strength, the alien race's relatives found it increasingly difficult to fight. Countless undead died, and at the same time, a large number of undead were born. This situation continued until Fang Cang had exhausted all his divine power and the undead had no new supplies, so the aliens were able to gain a slight advantage. It was also at this time that the curtain of war quietly fell. Boom! Several channels of divine power appeared above each of the kingdoms of God. Countless relatives rushed out from it. At the same time, a sturdy figure slowly emerged in the air. Fang Cang. I'm here to save you. Chapter 87. Fang Cang. I'm here to save you. Along with the sound, a sturdy figure slowly emerged in the kingdom of God. It was Monkai. Hearing the voice, Fang Cang also flashed to Monkai's side. At this time, his face was pale and his mind was weak. This was because the divine power was once again exhausted, and also because of the deaths of a large number of followers. Fang Cang, I brought your family back. At the beginning, Fang Cang left some undead and necromancers in Monkai's kingdom of God. The purpose is to help him defend against the enemy, and at the same time expand the team through fighting. Now, with the appearance of Monkai, his undead souls have also returned to the kingdom of God. Fang Cang turned his gaze towards the direction of Monkai's kingdom of God. At the Divine Power Channel, led by the necromancers headed by Dylan, more than 1 million undead rushed to the battlefield in a mighty force. They wanted to rescue their people. In addition, there are 2 new channels of divine power connected to his kingdom of God, and a steady stream of followers rushed out from them to join the battlefield and launched an attack on the followers of alien races. Oink! With a flash of divine power, 2 figures appeared beside Fang Cang. Fang Cang, they are all the sons of God from the previous term. They came here to carry out a mission. We just happened to run into them this time, so we were able to provide support in time. Manchi was the first to speak and introduce himself. In fact, he realized that something was wrong the moment Fang Cang was besieged, but Fang Cang sent him a message at that time and asked him to leave first. He was not so stubborn as to insist on living and dying together. It would be useless for him to go into a battle of this level. So, Monkai ran away while sending a message for help. Fortunately, those alien godsons only had eyes for Fang Cang and ignored him, so he was not affected. It was during the process of escape that he discovered this huge team composed of tens of thousands of sons of God. After both parties briefly confirmed their identities, Monkai told them about Fang Cang's situation. Then, some sons of gods left the team and followed him to come and provide support. In other words, you didn't come here just because you received the message for help. Fang Cang stared blankly at the 2 people in front of him. After understanding the whole story, Fang Cang finally saw the vast army of the kingdom of God in the outside world. While being severely shocked, he also raised questions. He always thought that his request for help had worked. But I didn't expect that the other party just happened to pass by. It's outrageous. If I had been less lucky, I would have failed here this time. Fang Cang's face was filled with black lines, and he couldn't help but complain about the efficiency of civilization. What he didn't know was that this battlefield was the beginning of the plan. All rescue missions were completed by the previous generation of Sons of God. With such a large number of Sons of God here, what other support can compare to them in terms of speed or strength? With the participation of the previous generation of human gods, the battle ended faster. Although those alien gods were extremely unwilling, they could not escape the fate of the destruction of their kingdom of God in the end. As for those geniuses who ran away early, they were chased by a group of Sons of Gods from the previous generation. With their speed, those geniuses would find it difficult to escape. The collective mobilization of the previous generation of Sons of God completely cleared this battlefield. Fang Cang didn't know how many alien Sons of Gods they had killed in this wave of battle. Just looking at the dense fragments of the kingdom of God around them, it was likely that most of the aliens had not been able to escape this time. He didn't know whether this action was premeditated or spur of the moment, but there was no doubt that all civilizations had suffered heavy losses. The determination and wisdom of the human race should not be underestimated. If this arrangement was made in advance, then the human race's actions might not be just this simple. After all, although this wiped out many geniuses of the alien races, it is still a long way from causing serious damage to the alien races. The alien civilizations will definitely have countermeasures, and may even take revenge one day. This speculation was later confirmed in his conversation with the previous Son of God. The tens of thousands of Sons of Gods here are just part of the plan. There are many more Sons of God from the previous generation who have gone to different battlefields. In a short period of time, I am afraid that the entire land where God descends will be plunged into war. As for the subsequent details, the Sons of God didn't know either. They just happened to catch up with this operation. Regardless of which civilization, every year there will be a large number of Sons of God who find it difficult to be promoted to gods within 100 years. Among them are some Sons of God whose kingdom of God was previously shattered and who are now reuniting the kingdom of God. Because of their previous experience, these Sons of Gods are no less powerful than the geniuses as long as their followers are not too bad. What really sets them apart from the geniuses is probably the position behind the gods. These people will become the main force in this war. Fang Cang guessed that if human civilization had been prepared in advance, the alien race would have suffered a huge loss this time, and the alien godsons would have been very sad this year. Fang Cang is not able to participate in all of the above for the time being. He just analyzes them out of habit, predicts the future trends of civilization in advance, and then adjusts his development plan according to the situation. As a small son of God, he can currently play no role in this confrontation between civilizations. Watching the army of the kingdom of God, which was as huge as the sky and the earth, leave, Fang Cang regained his composure. No matter what, improving your strength is the most important thing at the moment. If you can become an army of one person in the future, then you will have the possibility to participate in any war. It seems that the civilization has not informed us of its battle plan against the aliens this time. Manchi on the side suddenly spoke, his eyes were fiery. He was already keen on fighting, and it was undoubtedly torment for him not to be able to participate in such an action. But his current condition is not good, otherwise he might be able to secretly follow and fight. Why did you notify us? Fang Cang glanced at him. This idiot's thoughts are written all over his face. Although the development time is 100 years apart, many of the geniuses are no less powerful than the sons of God of the previous generation, right? Wouldn't more people mean more power? Manchi was puzzled. This was what he couldn't understand the most. There were obviously more combat forces available, but this time it seemed that all the geniuses did not receive the battle notification. After hearing this, Fang Cang shook his head and explained. Think about it, the Tianjiao are the future of the human race, and their potential for achievement is far higher than those of the previous sons of God. How could the top leaders risk the future of the human race to destroy the future of the alien race? This principle is actually very easy to understand. To put it cruelly, those sons of God in the previous generation had limited potential, and humans would not feel sorry even if they died in battle. Using these low-value sons of God to exchange for the high-value geniuses of other races, even if the ratio is 10 to 1, it is a good deal for the human race. But the geniuses are different. If each of them grows up, the value they bring is 100 or even 1,000 times that of an ordinary son of God. The usual support missions are to allow most of the geniuses to grow better, but in such a large-scale war, the human race will not allow the geniuses to participate. Fang Cang had just figured this out, but it didn't make any sense to him. A bowl that fits your appetite should be used accordingly. This experience also taught him a lesson. Right now, instead of thinking about these things, it is better to focus on how to quickly ignite the divine fire. Now, after so many battles, his fusion degree with the Kingdom of God has finally reached 95%. Next, it's time for the final sprint. Chapter 88. In the Divine Country. Fang Cang swept his divine sense across, and the entire divine kingdom was in ruins. In this battle, the number of dependents participating in the war on both sides has reached over 20 million. In a battle of this magnitude, there is almost no intact land in the entire Kingdom of God. To describe it as a landslide or an earthquake would be an understatement. In this case, in order to restore the Kingdom of God to its original state, a huge amount of divine power would be required. Fang Cang's divine power was exhausted at this time, and the undead had almost no demand for the environment, so he put this matter aside for the time being and would talk about it later when he could remember it. At this time in the Kingdom of God, the flesh and blood of various creatures had completely covered the ground, with pale broken bones mixed in. The blood had already seeped deep into the earth, rendering the ground into patches of mottled colors. Countless corpses were floating in various lakes and stagnant waters. More corpses turned into nutrients, nourishing the plants that had long since died. This was the first time he had ruined his Kingdom of God like this. It would be a lie to say he didn't feel sad. In the past, no matter how much we fought, it was either a small fight or in someone else's Kingdom of God. The losses in this battle also made Fang Cang extremely distressed. Today, there are less than 4 million undead left, 80% of which were summoned in battle, and the earliest batch has almost been killed or injured. The number of necromancers and demons is less than half of what it used to be. The one who suffered the most serious damage was the most powerful undead giant. On the battlefield, their height brings them great strength, but also makes them the most conspicuous targets. Most of the attacks were directed at the undead giants. This has also led to the fact that there are less than 500 undead giants still alive in the Kingdom of God. With Fang Cang's current divine power, he can forget about summoning a large number of them in a short period of time. The biggest reason for all this, in addition to his own greed, is also his weak performance in frontal combat, which is one of the main culprits. Whenever he summoned corpses on the battlefield into undead, their strength was at its weakest. Perhaps it will have a certain surprise effect when just making contact with the enemy, but once the enemy is on guard, this effect will be greatly reduced. The reasons for this are, firstly, the limitation and influence of the physical body on the strength of the undead, and secondly, the undead that have not been soaked in stagnant water have a gap with their enemies in terms of bone strength and recovery speed. This is also the essential difference between Fang Cang and other sons of gods. Generally, sons of God will use their divine power to strengthen their followers little by little during the development process. With the passage of time, the overall strength of the followers of such sons of God will become stronger and stronger. But Fang Cang is different. He uses all his divine power to summon the undead. Although this gives him an advantage in quantity, the quality is undoubtedly much worse. Fortunately, he still has the dead energy to fill the gap in this area, but filling the dead energy also takes time and cannot be done overnight. In fact, he realized this problem very early, but he had never thought of a good solution. Now, after experiencing a great battle in which his entire army was almost wiped out, he had to think again. If this problem cannot be solved, then he will never be considered a true scourge of the undead. No scourge is afraid of a frontal battlefield. He can still only snowball little by little on the side battlefield. Once he encounters a situation where the number of enemies far exceeds his own, all his advantages will disappear without a trace. At present, the undead giants are actually one of the supplementary forces on the front battlefield, and the necromancer is also key. However, as the main fighting force and the largest in number, the undead's strength has gradually failed to keep up with the pace. The only solution to this problem, apart from replacing the main combat force, is to enhance the individual strength of the undead. Moreover, this improvement must be fast and efficient, and cannot require long-term soaking in stagnant water as before. That approach is suitable for daily accumulation but has no meaning for the front battlefield. In order to increase the strength of the undead, one must either find a way to quickly remove all the flesh and blood, or allow them to maintain sufficient combat power while still having a flesh and blood body. Of course, the infusion of death energy is also essential. This reminded Fang Cang of some details of this battle. The main reason why he was able to hold on for so long this time, and even fight against enemies that far outnumbered him before his divine power was exhausted, in addition to the strength of the undead themselves, was also due to the home advantage. In his kingdom of God, the ubiquitous death energy is undoubtedly a paradise for the undead. The rich death energy can enhance their combat power to a certain extent, while also having the effect of weakening the enemies. How to make the death energy more dense, or fill the enemy's kingdom of God with death energy, this problem he realized very early on was brought to the table again. The death of a living being can produce death energy, but the amount is limited after all. At present, those dead air crystals may become a breakthrough in his experiment. In the kingdom of God, necromancers led the undead to clean up the battlefield. They gathered all the corpses and threw them into the sea of bones. The corpses in the sea of bones had long been cleared out, so this was a good opportunity to replenish his inventory. All the undead are busy with their respective work under the leadership of the necromancer. The giants were carrying wood to repair their houses, the undead were using their sharp claws to remove the flesh of corpses, and only the demons were wandering around like street urchins, doing nothing. Finally, Fang Cang couldn't bear it any longer, so he arranged for the demons to gather up the scattered animals. Now there were not many animals left alive in the kingdom of God. As for the fallen trees and collapsed rocks, no one was willing to care about them. The quality of the environment seems to be irrelevant to them. As long as there is death energy, it is enough. It is their food and also the source of their power. Supreme Lord, please listen to the call of your followers. Just as Fang Cang was supervising the work, a voice sounded in his heart. This is the only way for followers to communicate with the gods, and only believers with sufficiently fanatical faith can do it. Of course, the gods don't have to care, because some followers may make some strange wishes when praying. But in Fang Cang's place, this situation is generally rare, because except for the necromancer, the other followers have little intelligence. Through the thread of faith, I sensed that the calling voice came from the short frogman. Wow! Fang Cang was very fond of this undead leader whom he had appointed. Wagwa had always been diligent and had trained batch after batch of necromancers, and his faith was also firm enough. With a thought, Fang Cang appeared in front of Wagwa. In Wagwa's eyes, that figure that could not be looked at directly was bathed in brilliant light. Feeling the gaze from God, he knelt on the ground devoutly. Chapter 89. Master, something happened. Wagwa lowered his head and knelt on the ground, pointing his finger at the sea of bones beside him. Yeah, I see. Fang Cang followed the direction of the finger and turned his gaze to the sea of bones. Before, he was only paying attention to the work of his followers and did not notice the changes in the environment. But as soon as he came over, he knew what Wagwa was going to say. The sea of bones has changed. To be precise, it was the corpses in the sea of bones that changed. The previous battle left a large number of corpses here. These corpses are scattered throughout the kingdom of God, and of course also in the sea of bones. Some scattered corpses were floating on the lake. The job of Wagwa and his colleagues is to salvage all the corpses. They will only throw them back after they have removed all the flesh and blood from the corpses. This was something they had done frequently before. The corpses collected after each battle would go through this process and finally be stored in the sea of bones. The flesh and blood that are removed are used to feed the animals living here. But this time, some of the corpses in the sea of bones actually moved on their own. Yes, the corpse moved without the interference of the power of death. The flesh and blood of some corpses had become tangled together. Those pieces of flesh and blood were like long and thin earthworms, entangled with each other and devouring each other. Several corpses kept squirming and moving closer together. During this process, those earthworm-like tentacles even began to extend farther, looking for more flesh and blood. Fang Cang frowned slightly. This scene made him feel inexplicably familiar. But for a moment I couldn't remember where I had seen it. In just a short while, the corpses had squirmed and merged together, entangled with each other to form a bloody ball of flesh. Countless tiny tentacles were waving in the air, pulling more corpses together. This scene gave Fang Cang a disgusting and weird feeling. This little thing looks pretty unique. Thinking of this, he extended a trace of his spiritual consciousness to cover the ball of flesh, carefully exploring the changes within it. The flesh and blood of multiple corpses have merged into one, and the blood vessels and meridians have completely disappeared. The bones in the corpse still exist, but they do not seem to play a supporting role. They are broken under the pressure of flesh and blood and then expelled from the body. Due to being soaked in stagnant water, there is a faint smell of death in the flesh and blood. It should have been contaminated not long ago, which is similar to the creation process of the undead. Wrong. Fang Cang reacted suddenly. The undead are created by the reaction of death energy to living things. These corpses are obviously dead objects. They should be similar to the undead. Death energy will only invade the bones and has no effect on the flesh. In this case, these corpses have acquired the characteristics of living things for some reason? Or is there some kind of living thing inside it? Controlling his spiritual consciousness and going deeper, this mass of flesh seemed to be more complicated than he had imagined. Due to the squeezing of some force, the flesh and blood had long lost their original shape. All the flesh and blood piled together were actually wriggling and rising and falling rhythmically like breathing. And with every rise and fall of theirs, the energy in their flesh and blood would decrease by 1 point. Outside its body, countless slender tentacles were flying, constantly searching for new flesh and blood energy. Where does all this energy go? Fang Cang was a little confused. Energy cannot disappear out of thin air, what absorbed it? At this moment, according to his perception, the entire meatball has been clearly displayed in front of him. Everything in it has been explored, but the disappeared energy is still missing. This is the key to solving the puzzle. Fang Cang frowned and thought. He originally thought that some mutation occurred on a corpse, which caused this. But now it seems that these corpses are just shells used to provide energy, and are not the root cause of this change. But there was nothing here except this lump of flesh and the corpse. Is it a problem with the bone sea? Fang Cang quickly rejected this idea. The sea of bones is no different from before. If it was a problem with the sea of bones, it should have been discovered long ago. After all, both he and the necromancers come here quite frequently. If that's the case, then the problem is most likely with these corpses. Was it the appearance of the corpse that triggered this change? Fang Cang sorted out the clues bit by bit. In the previous sea of bones, only the skeletons that had been stripped of their flesh and blood would be thrown here to soak. This is also the only difference from now. That leaves only two possibilities. First, the corpses themselves had mutated for some reason. Second, the arrival of these corpses triggered some changes in the sea of bones. In this regard, Fang Cang is more inclined to the second possibility. In the entire kingdom of God, this situation has only occurred in this one place, and those corpses are ordinary subordinate creatures, without any strangeness. All these speculations, combined with the disappearance of the flesh and blood energy just now, the answer is already very obvious. There is some kind of creature here that he can't see. What can't you see? Soul? With the power of the dead, seeing souls is no longer a problem. Apart from that, there are things that are easily overlooked by him. A smile appeared on Fang Cang's face. He probably had guessed it. He finally remembered why the scene of flesh and blood being devoured seemed so familiar. A trace of divine consciousness entered the flesh again. This time, he focused on the constantly squirming flesh and blood. Those pieces of flesh that no one knew where they originally belonged to had already been squeezed together, with some blood hanging on them and flowing slowly with the ups and downs of the flesh. Fang Cang's target this time is them. Those flowing blood. It is normal for blood to exist in flesh and blood, but it is precisely because of this normality that he ignores the changes. Fang Cang's thoughts were already very clear at this time, if he put aside those things that did not exist or that he really could not see. The only answers that caused the changes here were things that were easily overlooked by him or difficult to discover. For example, bacteria. For example, blood water. Fang Cang gently placed his spiritual sense over the blood, and then he continued to move his spiritual sense deeper. The blood was magnified little by little in his perception. Zoom in a little bit. Slowly, the blood turned into blood mist. Slowly, the blood mist turned into an independent blood-colored sphere. Those blood-colored spheres are not blood cells in the conventional sense. They have shells, tentacles, and even feet. That's a bug. Insects so tiny that they cannot be seen with the naked eye. At this time, blood composed of countless blood-colored insects was flowing inside the meatball. The energy that disappeared from the flesh and blood was also absorbed by them. Fang Cang felt everything carefully and narrowed his eyes subconsciously. What a coincidence! We meet again. Chapter 90. In the meatball. Countless tiny insects invisible to the naked eye formed streams of blood flowing in it. All changes in the bone sea are caused by them. Including the flesh and blood of the corpses, in the end they were all devoured and absorbed by these insects. The reason why Fang Cang felt familiar was that the way they devoured flesh and blood was very similar to the blood mist that appeared in the previous battle. Rotata. Fang Cang still remembers this name. During the battle at that time, the opponent released the blood mist by causing all of his followers to self-destruct. The blood mist eventually killed millions of followers right under the noses of all the sons of God. Fang Cang still remembers clearly the strength and character of this alien son of God. The blood mist released by the opponent was the most lethal ability he had ever seen. Although the final price was the death of all his relatives, this ability is still terrifying even now. After the battle, all the corpses were collected by Fang Cang and finally thrown into the sea of bones. Looking back now, everyone thought that the blood mist had disappeared, but in fact, some of it might have been left behind. They were attached to the bones and carried back to the sea of bones. However, there were only skeletons in the sea of bones, and there was not much blood and energy for them to absorb, so they became silent. It was not until now that a large number of corpses appeared in the sea of bones that they woke up again and began to frantically devour flesh and blood energy. This is the true appearance of the blood mist. It is composed of countless insects that are too small to be seen. Fang Cang didn't know whether his guess was correct, but apart from that, he couldn't think of any other possibilities. These insects couldn't appear out of thin air, and the other party's ability to devour flesh and blood was indeed similar to what they had shown at the time. The difference was that he remembered that after the blood mist was absorbed by the followers, it had the ability to affect people's emotions. The followers' minds were completely controlled by the insects and they lost their reason. This prompted millions of relatives at that time to bite and devour each other's flesh and blood. But at that time, they did not have the ability to control flesh and blood like they do now. Is it because you can't control the body of a living thing? Or have they changed in some way since coming here? Fang Cang thought silently. The blood mist appeared after the big-bellied monsters exploded. In other words, they actually have the ability to parasitize. Those big-bellied monsters are their parasites. Normally, they rely on the energy provided by their big bellies to survive and reproduce. When needed, you can break the parasite and cause damage to the enemy. Thinking of this, Fang Cang frowned. So how did these bugs manage not to harm those big-bellied monsters? Is it because those monsters themselves are special? Or are those bugs controlled by Rotata? If it is the first possibility, then there is no need to cut open the stomach, right? Since the big-bellied monster can suppress the bugs, there is no reason for it to have to die in order to release them. You know, those monsters are all intelligent creatures. If the gods force them to die, it is likely to cause a decrease in faith or even disobedience to orders. Don't underestimate any intelligent race's cherishment of its own life. In that case, that's the second possibility. If the blood mist could be controlled by Rotata. So, could it be that those insects are his real followers? Fang Cang suddenly raised his head. He thought of Rotata's performance at that time. That cold look. And as the big-bellied monster died, his body gradually became weaker. At that time, the blood mist did not distinguish between friend and foe. The alien relatives were also contaminated by the blood mist and began to attack each other. If that insect is Rotata's follower, well, he did it on purpose. According to this line of thinking, the bugs don't actually need to break open their stomachs to appear. Everything the other party did was to create a false impression for everyone. He wanted everyone to know that the blood mist was actually out of his control. As the big-bellied monsters were all killed or injured, Rotata's spiritual thoughts were cut off. This also made everyone believe that all his relatives had died and his kingdom of God had been destroyed. Let's talk about it when you can stand in front of me again one day. Okay, it won't be long. Fang Cang once again recalled the conversation between the two of them. At this moment, he felt a chill rising from behind and his scalp felt slightly numb. Rotata's kingdom of God was not broken? Fang Cang's eyes widened, his mind a little confused for a moment. Logically speaking, even if the other party's kingdom of God was not destroyed, he should not take an ordinary son of God so seriously. However, all the actions and behaviors of the other party made Fang Cang feel fearful. Even if the opponent's strength is not strong, just based on this character, how can such a person be ordinary? He recalled the details of that moment again. After Rotata's divine consciousness was disconnected, the blood mist raged across the battlefield. Millions of relatives bit each other, the sons of gods from other races were beaten back to the divine realm one by one. Wait until the battle is over and clean up the battlefield. During this period, no one mentioned which kingdom of God belonged to Rotata. But there were so many human godsons there at the time, it was impossible for a complete alien kingdom of gods to exist. This would be too obvious. What is the purpose of Rotata doing this? Unless he has the power to make the kingdom of God invisible, or maybe he has the ability to be resurrected. A picture suddenly flashed through Fang Cang's mind. That was not long after he became the son of God. He returned to the Divine Realm Square and asked Cang Yang for help, so that he could have the ability to move in the place where the gods descended. At that time, Cang Yang took out the core of the Kingdom of God and explained its function to him. The core of the Kingdom of God contains everything in the Kingdom of God. If only the Kingdom of God is broken, the gods who possess the core can use it to rebuild the Kingdom of God again. What the hell? Fang Cang's eyes suddenly widened and he exclaimed in surprise. At that time, he was only enjoying the joy that the Kingdom of God could finally move. Those words that seemed to be an explanation from Cang Yang were forgotten by him in the blink of an eye. If Rotata already possesses the core of the Kingdom of God, he saw that the battle was hopeless. So, he took the initiative to detonate all his followers, creating the illusion that all his followers were dead. Then he took the initiative to shatter the Kingdom of God, and then controlled his divine consciousness to disconnect from the Kingdom of God. In this way, no one will doubt the truth that he has destroyed the Kingdom of God. Moreover, the advantage of doing so is that he did not give the human race the opportunity to search for his Kingdom of God. In this way, no one would know that he still retained the core of the Kingdom of God. He can completely rebuild the Kingdom of God in a short period of time. If this is the truth, so, Rotata is faking his death. Chapter 91. Did Rotata fake her death? Fang Cang didn't know whether his guess was correct. This would take time to verify. If he had the chance to meet him again, the answer would naturally be revealed. Right now, it's better to prioritize the things at hand. There are not many insects in this meatball now, which is far less than the scale of covering the sky and the sun and millions of followers. Fang Cang guessed that most of the insects had starved to death due to the lack of food for a long time. Their luck is not good. There are enough corpses in the Sea of Bones, but there are no flesh and blood creatures here. With the concentration of dead air here, ordinary flesh and blood creatures have no way to survive. Back then, the transformation of the undead also started from the thin dead water. If the undead were thrown into the current Sea of Bones, they would die suddenly in minutes. If it weren't for the Great War that occurred this time, which left many corpses floating in the Sea of Bones, perhaps all these insects would have starved to death if they waited a while longer. A series of coincidences led to our current meeting. Fang Cang thought they were lucky. Now that they have encountered me, these insects will no longer lack food for at least a short period of time. For him, these insects are still very valuable for research. If I could convert it into a follower and use it, maybe I could make up for some of the shortcomings in my own strength. Fang Cang arranged for Wagwa and others to continue cleaning up the battlefield, while he took the ball of meat and left the bone sea. The bugs were behaving slightly differently than what he had seen before, and he wanted to test why, wondering if it was due to the difference between dead and living things, or if they had somehow changed during this time. On the broken plain, the huge ball of flesh kept wriggling. Their originally tiny tentacles now became thicker. Fang Cang stood there and silently observed the changes in the meatball. For testing, he found some animals and a large number of carcasses. The thing that is most in short supply in God's kingdom today is corpses. Usually, the flesh and blood from the corpses are peeled off and fed to animals, but now they have a better place to go. He first threw a grizzly bear next to the meatball. After sensing the breath of a living creature, the mass of flesh squirmed and stretched out its tentacles, wrapping around the grizzly bear. The tentacles were quite resilient, but the power gap between the two sides was too big. The grizzly bear was frightened and struggled hard, but soon it tore the tentacles apart and fled in panic. Seeing this, Fang Cang threw some corpses next to the meatballs, intending to let them replenish their energy first. They were obviously still in a weak state, so the effect of testing like this would be very poor. While the meatball was eating, Fang Cang used his divine sense to observe the insect's every move. The corpses were pulled over by the tentacles and melted into the flesh ball. After all the energy was exhausted, all the flesh and blood turned into layers of dry shells that covered the flesh ball. As a large amount of corpses were consumed and absorbed, the meatball became larger and larger, and the insects in its body became more and more active. However, up to now, they have not shown the blood mist state like before. Fang Cang guessed that it might be because their numbers are too small. Now they are more like building a nest for themselves. And this eating process lasted for 3 whole days. During this period, the flesh and blood of at least thousands of corpses were consumed, and all the flesh and blood turned into a protective layer of the meatball, wrapping it up layer by layer. The eating process did not stop until the volume of the meatball reached a diameter of about 2 meters. At this time, all the tentacles were retracted and the entire meatball fell into a state of silence. Under Fang Cang's observation, all the insects became quiet. He didn't know how these bugs would behave next, but the test would not be interrupted. Fang Cang continued to control the grizzly bear and walked forward, giving it the order to attack. He wanted to test the strength of this nest. So, as the grizzly bear swung its claws at the meatball, the silent ball of meat suddenly came alive again. Countless thick tentacles made of flesh and blood shot out like sea urchins and instantly wrapped around the brown bear tightly. This time the tentacles were thick and powerful, and no matter how the brown bear struggled, it could not escape. What's even more bizarre is that according to Fang Cang's perception, the tentacles actually grew countless tiny spikes the moment they wrapped around the brown bear. As the tentacles tightened, those dense spikes penetrated into the grizzly bear's body little by little. Lines of flesh and blood were transported into the flesh ball along the tentacles, and the grizzly bear shriveled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a moment, the blood and flesh power in the grizzly bear's body was completely absorbed, and as the tentacles retracted, the meatball fell into a dormant state again. And the entire body of the grizzly bear was left with only a piece of skin wrapped around bones. Fang Cang looked at this scene in amazement. Meatball did not integrate the grizzly bear's body into it as it did before, probably because its current size has reached its limit. And their performance is completely different from the previous blood mist. Although it still requires the power of devouring flesh and blood, the current way of eating is undoubtedly more domineering. Have these bugs mutated? A guess flashed through Fang Cang's mind, but he was unable to explore it at the moment. These insects are obviously full now and have enough energy supply. Now it depends on whether they can reproduce quickly. Only when he has more experimental subjects will he be able to experiment with them with confidence. Unexpectedly, the reproduction time of these insects is much longer than Fang Cang imagined. This wait lasted for a full month. After the insects are full, they begin to digest the energy in the food, then lay eggs, and then larvae are born and grow into adults. Fang Cang was paying close attention to the changes in the beginning, but later he went to do other things and only fed them once a day, leaving a trace of his spiritual consciousness waiting for the larvae to grow. Finally, when all the larvae grew up, the meatball changed again. More insects brought greater food demand. As Fang Cang continued to feed it, the meatball had grown to a diameter of 3 meters. Fang Cang suspected that if he did not interfere with it, it would continue to grow with enough food. Of course, these are all things for the future. What he needs to do now is to deal with the reactions of these insects to the power of the undead. He used his divine power to extract some of the insects and let them attach to another pile of corpses. This time, perhaps because of sufficient nutrition, the insects did not search for fresh flesh and blood as frantically as they did at the beginning. These bugs simply devoured a few corpses, formed a half-meter high meatball, and then remained silent. Seeing this, Fang Cang no longer hesitated and waved his hand to throw a stream of undead power at the meatball. The power of death wrapped around the entire flesh ball and slowly penetrated into it. He used a fusion approach. At the same time, a mysterious aura suddenly appeared from a corner of his body. This breath quietly attached itself to the power of the undead as he moved. In Fang Cang's eyes, a flash of lavender flashed. By Chapter 92. This is. Fang Cang was the first to notice the appearance of the lavender aura. He was very familiar with it, it was the chaotic force that belonged only to this world. But the question is, why did this chaotic force emerge from his body? Whether it is the dead air representing the power of death, or the dark power targeting the soul, their roots are in the kingdom of God, and each time they are used, they are drawn from the power of the world. But this time, there didn't seem to be any unusual movement in the power of the world. Instead, a chaotic force appeared in his body. Are these two different things? In doubt, Fang Cang didn't care about the meatball in front of him. His spiritual thoughts spread to the heaven and earth again, communicating with the power of the world. After careful feeling, the part of the world's power that represents chaos is no different from the breath that just appeared. That aura in his body. According to Fang Cang's perception, in a certain corner of his body, a weak force of chaos was residing there. That power was recovering little by little under the nourishment of divine power. But looking at the process, it seems to take a long time before it can be used again. When did this appear? Fang Cang was full of doubts. In fact, he had already guessed about the changes in those insects. In Fang Cang's opinion, their characteristics can barely be described as chaos of flesh and blood, which is similar to the power of chaos. Just like when the evil spirit first appeared, the dark power at that time could only be used on souls. This seemed to be related to some characteristics of the dark power and was not applicable to all creatures. The same is true for the power of chaos. During the time those insects lived here, they were infected by the power of the world and must have been contaminated by some of the chaotic power, which made their performance very different from before. Now it seems that Fang Cang was only half right. Insects can indeed withstand the power of chaos, but this power may not be what he imagined. Fang Cang had always regarded the three attributes of the world's power as three unique forces, and the emergence of death energy undoubtedly proved this. But the power of darkness is not so obvious, because he has not been able to mobilize this power freely until now. Until the emergence of the power of chaos today, it was equivalent to completely overturning his idea. Maybe darkness, death, and chaos were not three different energies as he thought? If we change our thinking and think that the combination of these three attributes is the true face of his kingdom of God, wouldn't this be more reasonable? Fang Cang continued to think along this line of thought. He uses the most dead energy and represents the root of the energy of the kingdom of God. The darkness that can currently only be used on souls is not a simple energy. It represents the attribute of the kingdom of God and is a characteristic of this planet. This explains why darkness can only be used on souls. Because only the soul is the survival state of the living after death. Just like the underworld in the legends of previous lives, only after a person dies can the soul enter the underworld. Only this state of death and soul living will be accepted by the underworld. Of course, Sun Wukong's existence in hell does not count. Fang Cang is equivalent to the king of hell in the underworld. Only when he integrates the breath of hell into the soul will the soul be recognized by this world. Hiss! Fang Cang suddenly took a breath when he thought of this. It feels more and more weird. Is my kingdom of God actually the underworld? Or hell? How else could he explain his ability to revive the living and accept souls? In this way, all his abilities can be explained. The living are polluted by the death energy and become half alive and half dead, and are called the undead. The dead are controlled by the death energy, so they are resurrected and become soldiers of hell, which are called undead spirits. The wandering souls of the dead and reborn were marked with the mark of hell by the king of hell and turned into demon spirits. And chaos. Perhaps chaos is just an adjective, not a power or an attribute. It represents disorder, dementia, and the collapse of everything in the world. When Fang Cang first came to this world, he saw the state of the creatures here, perhaps that was the ecological chaos. Chaos is everywhere. It is the real theme of this world. It cannot be simply explained by killing or death. In this world, the transition between life and death is also a manifestation of chaos. And this ability may not only be unique to this kingdom of God, it also belongs to Fang Cang himself. Was it the kingdom of God that gave Fang Cang the power of chaos, or was it Fang Cang's arrival that caused the kingdom of God to fall into chaos? The answer may no longer be known. But now, there is a chaotic aura in Fang Cang's body, and he has the qualifications to control chaos, which is different from any ability he has mastered. This is a power that truly belongs to him alone. This is a unique attribute possessed by the Lord of Hell. So, chaos is my true power. Fang Cang looked confused at this moment. It feels like after starting a business for many years, one day you suddenly find out that your company is a joint venture with someone else. The company next to you that no one cares about is the one that belongs to you alone. Then why couldn't you enter your own company before? Because as the boss, I don't have the key. It's just outrageous. Although the key has been found now, this company called Chaos has no money in its account because no one is running it. Of course, this analogy is not quite right. Whether it is darkness or death, they are actually his own power, but these two powers require the consent of the kingdom of God before they can be used. And Chaos is already in his pocket and can be used at any time. If you really want to say what is the difference between them. That is, Chaos is equal to divine power. He can use it directly, and there is no restriction even in the God realm. Darkness and death require divine power to be converted into the power of the dead, and then they can be mobilized after being authorized by the kingdom of God. Not only are there several more processes involved, but there is also a huge difference in control. However, divine power is accumulated through the power of faith, and only after the divine fire is ignited can one be said to have the source. What about the power of chaos? Fang Cang felt the lilac flame in his body. Although it was very slow, it was indeed growing quietly. Is there any difference between this and lighting the sacred fire? Now, the power of chaos has properties similar to fire. It can generate itself without transformation. Is this equivalent to lighting the divine fire in advance? He scratched his head, as he really had nothing to refer to, and couldn't figure out the reason for a moment. But regardless, this is a good start for him. He believed that sooner or later, this small flame would grow into a raging fire that would burn the sky and boil the sea. P.S. Fang Cang's kingdom of God will be called Abyss from now on. What do you think? When you stared into the abyss, Fang Cang jumped up and gave you a big slap. Chapter 93. In the Divine Country. Fang Cang sorted out his thoughts. All the previous speculations were just his personal subjective ideas, and the truth is still unknown. However, each of the three attributes contained in his kingdom of God has its own particularity, but they have the same origin and are complementary to each other. You are in me and I am in you, and they cannot be completely separated and viewed separately. Perhaps his method of splitting and understanding was wrong, because the names of these three attributes were originally given by him based on his feelings. Maybe it is not that complicated. Maybe these are just three different manifestations of the same force? Unknown. But no matter what, he now does have the ability to use chaos, and the next step is how to develop this ability. At this time, a line of faith connected with Fang Cang. After he used the power of the dead to integrate into the meatball, he successfully established faith. It seems that all the insects in this ball of meat are regarded as a dependent unit. This was the first time Fang Cang encountered such a situation, and he couldn't help but be a little surprised. Is it because the bugs are too small? A single bug is not enough to establish faith. According to his perception, there was indeed consciousness and emotion transmitted through the thread of faith. Seem. An entire swarm of insects has a common consciousness? He didn't understand the principle, but since he could establish faith, he could control it. Next, Fang Cang conducted a series of secret experiments while waiting for the power of chaos to recover. While Fang Cang was conducting experiments in full swing, the structure of the entire divine realm was quietly changing. The place where God descended. Human civilization sent out nearly 100,000 sons of God at once this time. All the sons of God were divided into small teams consisting of dozens or hundreds of sons of God. At the same time, they spread to the entire land where God descended. Except for the son of God of the human race, all alien races became their targets. For a time, countless fragments of the kingdom of God were floating everywhere in the entire place where God descended, and countless sons of God from alien races were beaten back to the realm of God in this operation. This sudden action really caught all civilizations off guard. Theoretically speaking, the number of sons of God in these civilizations is far greater than that of humans. However, since the action was rather sudden and they had no prior preparation, it was difficult for them to gather an effective counterattack force in a short period of time. This gave the human race's son of God the opportunity to defeat them one by one. Some alien civilizations suffered heavy losses in a short period of time and wanted to get back on track, but the remaining strength was not enough. This led to some civilizations beginning to negotiate and unite with each other. Of course, there were also some who asked for peace with the human race, but the attitude of the human race was very strange. To describe it in a few words. Don't refuse, I don't agree either. You ask for peace, and although I don't agree, I can temporarily not hit you, and don't expect me to help you beat others. If you dare to resist, I will beat you too. This does not mean that the human race is stronger than other civilizations, but because, after the initial honeymoon period, those civilizations that united with each other began to attack each other internally. The civilizations of various races have existed in the divine realm for countless years. During this period, countless civilizations have been completely destroyed, and countless civilizations have risen. However, there has never been a case where any two civilizations have successfully formed an alliance. The fundamental reason for this is due to the special rules of the divine world. As mentioned earlier, the wars among different races are actually all for the struggle for world power. This world power is different from that in the kingdom of God. It is a world power unique to the entire divine realm. Its function is more like the luck of a clan. A civilization with more world power will give birth to more sons of God and more people with extraordinary talents. It can be said that this is something that concerns the fundamental existence of a civilization. There are only two ways to obtain world power. First, the promotion of gods. Every time a son of God ignites the divine fire and becomes a god, and every time a god condenses his divine nature and becomes a true god, they will drive the growth of the world power of their own civilization. Of course, a true god or a god king will not be able to obtain it. To put it in a more mysterious way, the god king is an entity that is beyond the three realms and not within the five elements. They themselves are the embodiment of luck. Apart from this, the only option is plundering. Whenever a god kills a god from another civilization, his civilization will gain the other civilization's world power. This also led to endless wars throughout the divine world. You know, the birth of new sons of God every year consumes the power of the world. For every civilization, if they want to gain world power, war is the quickest way to do it. Therefore, since ancient times, there may be some brainless gods in various civilizations, but there will never be traitors. Because once one's own civilization has been plundered of a large amount of world power, all the gods of that civilization will face the severance of their path to advancement and even death. Therefore, it is extremely difficult for two civilizations to cooperate with each other. All civilizations are inherently hostile to each other. We are all like this. You think I look like a chicken leg and I think you look like a piece of bread, and we are jealous of each other. There may be a short-term collaboration due to certain things, but long-term cooperation will definitely not exist. Other civilizations will not watch two civilizations join forces to fight others. In this situation, it is more likely that everyone will first team up to kick out the cooperating civilization, and then break each other's brains. The human race has seen through this, so they don't care about the cooperation with other civilizations. If you can persist in cooperating until the end of the battle, then I lose. This is exactly the case. On the surface, we have all agreed to deal with the human race together first, but in private, once I see that you are no longer able to do it, I will kill you first. No one can have too many resources, and don't accuse me of being untrustworthy. If the situation were reversed, you would not show any mercy when you hit me. This concept is deeply rooted in countless years of war and will not change because of the emergence of a few people. So, as time went by, the entire land where God descended gradually fell into war. At this time, it was not just the human race that was fighting others. When various civilizations saw this situation, they sent a large number of sons of God to join the battlefield. If you kill one of my sons of God today, I will kill two of his sons of God tomorrow. Anyway, as long as they are not civilized, you can beat them. The human race, due to its advantage of being the first to take action, took full advantage of the process. Anyway, that's it for this year. If the alien civilizations want to retaliate, they will have to wait until next year. By that time, the human race will have gained more world power and more outstanding sons of gods. As long as it is handled properly, this advantage will be maintained. In this way, while weakening other civilizations, their own strength also increased significantly. During this period, there have been continuous sons of gods igniting the divine fire and breaking through to the god stage. And Fang Cang finally came out after 2 months of seclusion. P.S. Alas, I kind of regret posting the previous chapter. There are still many readers who don't understand its meaning. The undead are not chaos, but as a product of reversing life and death, they can also be called chaos in a sense. But the point is that I didn't mention that the undead represent chaos in the previous article. Why would someone raise such a question? The three attributes complement each other, and it is really difficult to understand them separately, so I explained them at the beginning of this chapter. Then the Hell and King of Hell mentioned in the text are adjectives, which does not mean that this is really the underworld. If you want to be more specific, you might as well take a closer look at the content. It's a headache because there are readers who don't read the book carefully. I don't want to cause trouble to everyone, so I can only explain it again and again. This is the last time. I hope everyone will read it patiently. Finally, a spoiler, there will be natural souls and conscious undead in the protagonist's kingdom of God. In this case, a series of undead creatures may appear. Chapter 94. The place where God descended. At this time, the place where the gods descended has been completely plunged into war, and the battles are now basically large-scale, with dozens or even hundreds of sons of gods fighting together, from all races and civilizations. The kingdom of God is being broken here every moment, and in contrast, a small number of sons of God ignite the divine fire every day. The geniuses of the human race, who initially served as firefighters, have now lost their original role. Civilization Unity issued them a mission. Try your best to ensure your safety. Apart from this, they received no new support missions. In today's battlefield, the sons of gods of the previous generation are the main force in the battle. It is difficult for the geniuses who have developed for a relatively short time to play a role in such a battle that involves tens of millions of followers. However, there are always some stubborn people who refuse to be lonely. Barbarian. After several months of recovery, his restless heart began to stir again. At this time, he was getting together with Luu, who was also restless. Actually, the two of them met because of Fang Cang, and they didn't get along very well when they first met. But by chance, during a battle, Luu was in danger and was saved by Manchi who happened to pass by. From then on, the two put aside their past grudges and started to team up to travel in the divine realm. Of course, given the current situation, it is not enough to rely on the strength of just the two of them. There are also several other sons of gods traveling with them, and they are all the geniuses of this session. Together they formed a blocking squad that was specifically designed to block enemies heading to the front battlefield for support. Wherever there is a battle, they will be there. In order to avoid being affected, they always stay far away from the battlefield. If the human race is at a disadvantage, they will go to help. If the human race is in an advantageous position, they will wait on the side for support from the other side. Several people were scattered around the battlefield, so they could spot any enemy that appeared immediately. If the other side has more people, they will turn around and run away. If the other side has fewer people, they would be like hyenas, one on each side, surrounding the enemy and attacking them. Of course, there are occasional mistakes. For example, you may encounter enemies with few sons of God but very powerful followers. However, the difference in combat power between the two sides is generally not too outrageous. After a period of stalemate, support will always come. However, if you walk by the river often, you will get your feet wet. This time, they ran into trouble. In the kingdom of God, yellow sand is flying all over the sky. At this time, tens of millions of relatives were involved in the battle. Manchi and other geniuses gathered together, observing the battle below with serious expressions. The request for support has been sent out, but I'm afraid the only ones who can come to support are the previous Son of God. All the support missions of the geniuses have been stopped, but the sons of gods from the previous generation are all in battle and it is not known when they can come. Several sons of God talked silently, all of them looking worried about the situation before them. Originally, as usual, they found a battlefield and waited for the enemy to come to support them. There were only 3 enemies coming to support this time, and everyone thought they could fight them. So without thinking too much, he controlled the kingdom of God and surrounded them. The battle started out just as expected. Although the 3 sons of God were very strong, there were 11 geniuses on the human side, and each of their followers were not weak. With more people against fewer, and with the suppression of the strength of their followers, they quickly gained the upper hand. If the situation continues to develop in this way, it won't be long before these 3 aliens will be completely wiped out. However, accidents always happen inadvertently. Just when everyone was fighting fiercely, a group of alien godsons arrived without anyone noticing. There are also 3 people. But the difference is that these 3 are the geniuses of this session. As soon as a few people entered the battlefield, the fighting situation between the two sides instantly came to a stalemate. This would actually be nothing. The battlefield of the previous Son of God was not far away, and the human race had the upper hand. As long as we could hold out for a while and wait for them to win, we could just come and support them, and the battle would be over. However, as the battle progressed, everyone gradually felt that something was wrong. The sky of God's kingdom is getting redder and redder. And the offensive of the alien relatives is becoming more and more fierce. That was the innate magical skill of a genius from an alien race. This magical skill has an effect similar to charging momentum. As more and more family members die on the battlefield, the opponent's accumulated momentum becomes stronger and stronger, which undoubtedly plays a decisive role on a battlefield of tens of millions of people. The stalemate was gradually broken as the alien race's followers became stronger and stronger, and the human race's followers began to fall into a disadvantage. Of course, it is not easy for anyone to become a genius. The sons of gods of the human race have all come up with unique tricks to pull the situation back a little. However, this can only temporarily ease the situation but cannot solve the fundamental problem. Moreover, as time goes by, this disadvantage will only get bigger and bigger, which is equivalent to another form of snowballing. If they continue like this, they might not be able to hold out until the previous generation of sons of God come to support them. After all, the battle over there involves dozens or even hundreds of people, and it cannot be resolved in 3 to 5 days. Whoosh! Boom! Flames that blocked out the sun and sky rose up, leaving a huge sea of fire on the battlefield. With Luu's attack again, the enemy's attack was repelled. It has to be said that Luu's long-range attack capability is really strong. The damage he caused alone is more than that of several aliens combined. But this does not change the overall situation. As the death toll increases, the offensive of the alien race's followers becomes stronger and stronger. Now it was like they had taken a slow-acting poison. The more they fought the enemy, the stronger they became. But they had no choice but to fight. What should we do? We won't be able to hold on for much longer if this continues. A son of God said anxiously that his followers were very strong in close combat, so they were at the front from the beginning, which also resulted in the heaviest casualties among his followers. We have called for support, but we don't know when they will arrive. How about, everyone return to the divine realm and look for our neighbors to help? A son of God suddenly suggested, and everyone turned their attention to him. The situations of the sons of God on each of the God King's planets are similar. The geniuses are arranged to live together separately. In this case, going to find them is indeed the quickest way. No, ordinary sons of God coming here have no ability to change the situation. At most, they can only ease the situation. If we can't hold on to support them, it will be equivalent to harming them. As soon as the words came out, the proposal was immediately rejected. The strength of the geniuses today is not much different, and 1 or 2 people coming here will not make much difference. Hey? Do any of you know those sons of God who are ranked higher in the rankings? They might be able to do it. A son of God suddenly said. Among all the people present, only Luu was on the list. Monkai had fallen off the list due to his previous decline in combat strength, while Luu rose to the top 80 position. Since the list appeared, the sons of God have been paying close attention to it, and they recognize the strength of most of the people on it. After all, most people live together, so who doesn't know a few top players? Hearing this, everyone shook their heads. There were only a handful of people ranked at the top, and the probability of everyone knowing each other was indeed not high. Luu suddenly looked at Manchi and saw what the other was thinking. I know someone. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone turned their eyes to Luu and started asking questions. Can we contact him? How's your strength? What's your ranking? The ranking is... Luu thought about it and felt that the opponent's ranking should not have changed. Ranked 3rd. Chapter 95. Beep beep beep. At this moment, Fang Cang, who was fighting in a random battlefield somewhere, suddenly sensed that someone from outside was looking for him. After explaining things to his teammates and saying hello, he decisively logged off and returned to the Divine Realm. In the Divine Realm, Fang Cang opened his eyes. The discomfort caused by the time difference between the two worlds still exists, but it is much better than before. After shaking his head slightly to dispel the dizziness, he probed his spiritual thoughts into the bracelet. Someone from Special Concern sent him a message. Brother Fang, sorry to bother you, enemy, if possible, ask for support. Coordinates XXX. The sender is Luu. The message was not long. Luu briefly explained the current situation they were facing, and explained the enemy's strength and the number of their followers, and finally attached a coordinate location. Seeing this, Fang Cang probably understood. The battle that Luu and others are currently facing is at the level of tens of millions, and coupled with the fact that the enemy has some powerful capabilities, he should be afraid that if he rushes over, he might not be able to win and end up getting implicated. Moreover, he was able to explain to me clearly what happened in such an urgent situation. This kind of thoughtfulness is rare. This undoubtedly further increased his feelings towards Luu. This is how friends get along with each other. Sometimes, just because you have a good relationship, you can't ask for things without restraint. He had encountered this in his previous life. Although they were very good friends, the other party would always make extremely excessive jokes and even criticize his life. In the end, he even said, "Don't mind me speaking frankly." For such friends, the final result can only be that they become more and more distant. Only if friends give each other more respect can they get along for a long time. In the message, Luu's meaning was already very clear. Do what you can. If you can, come as soon as possible. If you feel it is difficult, please help find some other support. In response to this, Fang Cang did not hesitate at all and went straight back to the Divine Realm. It's only 10 million. It's not like I haven't fought before. Boom. Amidst the roar, Fang Cang withdrew the channel of divine power. Fortunately, this time the divine power channel was connected to the human kingdom of God, and with the cooperation of the other party, it did not take too much time. After explaining the situation to the other sons of God, he rushed directly to the coordinates of Luu. The battle here is nearing its end, and most of the alien race's followers have been wiped out, so it doesn't matter if there is one more or one less. It's just a pity that there is no chance to take back the spoils this time. In the void, Fang Cang controlled the kingdom of God and rushed towards a certain location with all his strength. With his current speed, as long as the place is not too far away, he can usually get there within a few days. Along the way, he encountered several battlefields of various sizes, but he ignored them. The most important thing at the moment was to rescue Luu and others first. Finally, after 4 days of rapid travel, Fang Cang arrived at his destination. It was a small battlefield connected by more than a dozen divine kingdoms. In today's gods descending land, a battle of this scale can really only be called a small battlefield. Not far from them was a large battlefield consisting of hundreds of divine kingdoms. From a great distance, Fang Cang saw Luu's red kingdom of God. This color was particularly conspicuous among the many kingdoms of God, like a bright light bulb. In the center of the battlefield was a khaki-colored kingdom of God, which belonged to Monkai. In this battle, all the men's relatives were concentrated in his kingdom of God. This unfortunate child. Fang Cang felt a little sympathy for Monkai. Having just experienced a great war a few months ago, it has probably not recovered yet. After this battle is over, Monkai's kingdom of God will probably be beaten to pieces. Fang Cang thought of his own kingdom of God. Fortunately, the undead were relatively easy to deal with and were not picky about the environment of the kingdom of God. But Monkai was different. His followers were a group of intelligent people. Controlling the kingdom of God, he sped up again. As the scattered fragments of the kingdom of God were bounced away in the void, Fang Cang rushed directly towards the battlefield. Boom! A huge crash was heard, and Fang Cang directly crashed into a divine kingdom of an alien race. Ripples instantly appeared outside the divine kingdoms of both sides, which was a manifestation of the divine power operating at full capacity. At the same time, a thick divine power channel suddenly connected to the opponent's kingdom of God. The undead army, which had been prepared for a long time, marched forward under the command of the necromancer. Boom! As the divine power surged, Fang Cang actually extended a second divine power channel. This passage connects to another kingdom of God, and he actually launched attacks on 2 kingdoms of God at the same time. Since we are here to support you, we must be full of momentum. Looking at the undead army below split into 2 and rushing towards 2 passages respectively, Fang Cang showed a smile. I can use you as an experiment. The battle in the kingdom of God continues. During these few days, the enemy's offensive became increasingly stronger, and Luu and others fought hard. Fortunately, although the sons of God are full of energy, their followers still need to rest, so there will be a buffer period after each battle. This also gave everyone a chance to adjust. However, the attacks, one stronger than the last, were making it increasingly difficult for the group to resist. It was obvious that this situation could not be sustained for long. Perhaps they will face a total defeat in the next attack. Luu, when will your friend arrive? Taking advantage of the breaks in the battle, everyone gathered together to communicate. Soon, it should be soon. Fang Cang replied to Luu, telling him that he would come to support, but he did not specify the specific time, so no one knew how long this situation would last. Well, a son of God sighed. Of course they knew about the top 3 sons of God mentioned by Luu. People who often pay attention to the list must know the information of the top 10. They are just ordinary geniuses and are not qualified to be on the list. It can be said that everyone on the list is worthy of their admiration. The higher the ranking, the greater the gap in strength. Although I have never seen the strength of the top 10 sons of God, I can imagine it just by looking at Luu, who is in the top 80. The damage caused by Luu alone was equal to that caused by several of them combined. It is conceivable how powerful the Lord of the Undead who ranks far higher than Luu is. But now, as the battle situation becomes more and more severe, and everyone is waiting for no support, they can't help but become a little anxious. The Son of God, who was lost in thought, suddenly raised his head. A huge grey planet broke into his perception. Support has arrived. The Son of God said in surprise that Luu had already told them the image of Fang Cang's kingdom of God, so he was sure the moment he sensed it that the person coming was the Lord of the Undead. Great, we're saved. Hearing this, everyone perked up. Backup is approaching. The Son of God felt the other party's actions and reported them at the same time. Support, why did they rush to the back? The support ran into the enemy. Support. Damn. He attacked two enemies at the same time. Chapter 96. The moment Fang Cang Divine Kingdom appeared, the sons of gods from alien races discovered him. When Fang Cang attacked the two divine kingdoms at the same time, these alien godsons became restless. "We are all sons of God, why are you so arrogant? No need to say, let's fight." The two sons of God each mobilized their followers and rushed towards the direction of the divine power channel. The other sons of gods from other races were on guard against sneak attacks from Luu and others in the rear. Boom! Countless undead souls rushed out from the divine power channel, and in a very short time their number reached millions. When the two alien godsons saw it, they saw a creature they had never seen before. It was made up entirely of a pale skeleton, with a faint metallic luster flashing, and there was not a trace of flesh and blood on its body. Judging from their number, those who came should be the previous sons of God of the human race. However, as sons of God from the previous generation, they were not to be outdone. They commanded their followers to rush towards the opponent's team. The families of both sides were approaching each other from different directions at this time, and the flying dust covered the entire sky. At this moment, millions of followers seemed to divide the world into two different colors. Boom! After a brief acceleration, the followers at the front collided with each other, and the splattered blood, flesh, and broken bones fully demonstrated the power of this collision. The battle broke out instantly. After being soaked in stagnant water for several months, the undead's bone strength has increased significantly. Coupled with the rich death energy flowing through their bodies, they are faster and stronger. But this strength is only average for the previous Son of God. During these 100 years, their followers have been constantly nurtured by the divine power, and the strength of each and every one of them is incomparable to that of the current Son of God. Therefore, when the battle just started, the undead army did not gain the upper hand. Countless undead souls had their bones broken, fell to the ground, and were trampled into the mud. However, Fang Cang's followers are not limited to the undead. The biggest advantage of the spiritualization talent is the creation of followers, so the Son of God who possesses this kind of ability generally has a richer variety of followers. Their strength may not be the strongest, but with the emergence of various followers, they can constantly make up for their shortcomings. The undead are unable to crush the enemy in frontal combat? Never mind, there are still undead giants. Boom! On the battlefield, as the power of the dead appeared, countless undead souls exploded instantly. Corpses were flying all over the sky, and gathered together under the guidance of the power of the undead. Undead giants rose from the ground one after another, looking down at the tiny creatures on the ground, and then raised their feet. Boom! The earth was shaking, and countless alien relatives were instantly trampled into meat paste. This is one of Fang Cang's gains during this period. He got inspiration from that swarm consciousness. In the transformation experiment on the undead giant, this time he abandoned the previous combination method and infused a large amount of necromancy power into the body of an undead, while also leaving a trace of divine consciousness in it. This adjustment completely solved the previous problem of hundreds of consciousnesses repelling each other. At this moment, inside the body of the undead giant, there was only a consciousness with his divine thoughts attached. It was the main body of the undead giant and occupied an absolute dominant position. Under the suppression of the main consciousness, other consciousnesses became silent at this moment. Cry! At the same time, hundreds of thousands of evil spirits covered the sky like dark clouds. They shuttled back and forth across the battlefield, uttering bursts of wails from time to time. Affected by the wailing, all the alien relatives in the area fell into a brief daze. Crowd, field control, and strong attack. The three arms commanded by Fang Cang unleashed tremendous energy through mutual cooperation. This configuration is enough for him to deal with most combat scenes. But that's not enough. Among the countless corpses on the ground, a bloody torrent was slowly flowing. They grew quietly without anyone noticing. Corpses after corpses were infected, pieces of flesh and blood were devoured. The tiny tentacles were like entwined tree roots, gradually covering the battlefield under the cover of the corpses. Blood Tai Sui. This was the name Fang Cang gave to those bloody bugs, mainly because the meatballs they formed were somewhat similar to the Tai Sui he had seen in his previous life. Due to the limitation of their reproductive capacity, their numbers are still too small at this moment to form a large-scale offensive, but it is enough if they are just used to devour flesh and blood. When the flesh and blood are removed from the corpses and then the necromancer summons the undead, this invisibly enhances their strength. At the same time, in the divine power channel behind the battlefield, some undead did not participate in the battle. Guided by the power of death, thousands of undead spirits actually split their bodies into countless bones. Hundreds of thousands of white bones flew into the air and all gathered towards the location of the undead power. In just a moment, huge bone altars appeared on the spot. At this time, a necromancer in a black robe walked up to one of the altars. He held a piece of ink-black crystal tightly in his hand, his eyes excited and hot. Every step he took was extremely firm, as if he was fulfilling some sacred mission. Finally, he stepped onto the altar. On top of the altar, which was dozens of meters high, stood a wizard in a black robe. He opened his arms to the sky. He looked down upon the whole world. Under his feet was an endless sea of undead bones. Ahead of him is the world that the Lord is about to conquer. The necromancer slowly raised his head. Hidden beneath the white hood is the face of a frogman. Wow! This short frogman has been awakened by nightmares countless nights. He lost his loved ones and his tribe. Until that day, he knelt on the ground, holding his heart in his hands. He even lost his identity as a frogman. He became a monster. But it was at that moment that he received the recognition of God. He became the first undead. He became the first necromancer. He became the leader of all the undead. Until now, he has become the real manipulator of these millions of undead souls. Wagwa raised his head and his white hood slipped down. His eyes were wild and enthusiastic. He no longer hid his face. He wants people to see. Who is it? To the whole world, the first ray of smoke belonging to the master was lit. The dead crystal was gently thrown down, following the gap deliberately left at the top of the altar, disappeared in the darkness. Boom! Thick grey smoke rose into the sky. Like a volcanic eruption, the thick fog instantly covered the entire sky. At the same time, thick fog was spewing out from 10 altars at the same time, and the fog quickly spread in all directions. It will cover the entire world in fog. Chapter 97. Bone Altar. This is Fang Cang's greatest gain. Its principle is actually very simple, because the power of the undead has the ability to guide the death energy, so Fang Cang uses the power of the undead in the bodies of hundreds of undead to reversely stimulate the death energy crystals, causing the death energy in the crystals to evaporate quickly. He collected the death energy crystal from the death energy vein. The death energy contained in it was enough to revive millions of undead souls. You know, the death energy needed to revive millions of undead is much greater than the death energy generated by the simultaneous death of millions of living beings. This time he used 10 such crystals. The purpose is of course for experimentation, but at the same time it is also to see if the other party's kingdom of God can be transformed into a dead zone. This idea had been in his mind for a long time, but he had always been troubled by the lack of a corresponding solution. This time, he was inspired by the assembly method of the undead giants and built this skeleton altar. It has to be said that the scene of 10 bone altars spewing deathly air at the same time is still very spectacular. The scene was like 10 small volcanoes erupting at the same time, and the thick smoke quickly spread far away. On the battlefield, the relatives of the alien race who were fighting suddenly found that the surroundings became blurry. At some point, a thin layer of fog appeared on the battlefield. The undead that were fighting against them seemed to have increased slightly in both strength and speed. And as the fog grew thicker, they gradually found themselves unable to withstand the attacks of the undead. The changes brought about by the fog are not limited to this. They who are in it gradually feel irritated in their hearts, and their instinct makes them unable to control the urge to escape from this place. Under the influence of the death energy, the alien race's followers felt a sense of sluggishness in their every move. Just this small change caused a large number of followers to be killed or injured in the battle. As the followers on the field died one by one, more death energy dissipated into the air. Combined with the death cloud created by the 10 skeleton altars, this time they also experienced the powerlessness that those humans had felt at that time. You have to fight, the more you fight, the stronger the opponent will become. At this point, if no one came to help, the alien race would be completely at a disadvantage. But the necromancers who are in an advantageous position will not stop there. Now the time has come, and it is time for them to take action. On the battlefield, as low chanting sounded, countless undead forces fell to the center of the battlefield. Rustle. A familiar friction sound was heard. Those corpses that had been dead for a long time, the flesh and blood had disappeared completely at some point, leaving only a layer of skin wrapped around the bones lying on the ground. At this moment, they stood up one after another under the call of the necromancer, and swung their weapons at their former comrades. Puff! The sharp blade pierced through the chest. With enough death energy as a foundation, necromancers injected more death energy into the bodies of the undead when summoning them. In addition, now that they are no longer bound by flesh and blood, these undead spirits have considerable combat power as soon as they wake up. At this point, the problem that has always had the greatest impact on Fang Cang has finally been solved. From then on, his strength on the front battlefield was also not weak. Looking at those alien relatives, after suffering these successive blows, they began to collapse rapidly. The necromancers will not miss this opportunity. Accompanied by a series of explosions. Corpse explosions are being used like crazy on the battlefield, and every explosion can cause heavy casualties to the enemy. If anyone wanted to escape, they would erect bone walls to block the enemy's retreat. They have always used magic, but they have never fought such a prosperous battle. They can spend as much as they want without worrying about running out of dead energy. At this time, the kingdom of God was filled with a huge amount of death energy. Even the plants growing in it gradually withered under the infection of the deathly air. Call. It was as if I could feel the excitement of my companions. The bloodworms that had been dormant now came out from every corner. As a large amount of blood and flesh was absorbed, small blood tai sui appeared on the battlefield. More and more flesh and blood were absorbed by them, and the size of the blood tai sui was gradually growing. Their originally tiny flesh and blood tentacles also became thicker. Countless tentacles were waving on the battlefield. As enemies were drawn in one by one, they were sucked into a dried corpse in a few breaths. On the other side, the undead giant took a step forward and crushed the enemies under his feet. In the sky, the evil spirits were wrapped in thick fog, and their sharp roars shocked the souls. The necromancer rode on his undead warhorse, and low moans could be heard from under his black robe. The endless sea of undead bones rolled up huge waves, instantly drowning all the enemies standing in its way. Kill. In the yellow sand, the barbarian warriors rode on various war beasts and charged forward. Each of their attacks was accompanied by a flash of blood-red light. Since Fang Cang came to support, 2 previous sons of God from alien races were pulled into the battlefield by him at the same time. This action reduced the number of dependents of foreign races by half. Even though the alien genius was still there, they only had half of their combat power and were already unable to withstand the human offensive. As soon as Fang Cang arrived, the human race launched an attack on the alien race, which not only relieved Fang Cang of the pressure, but also allowed them to take the opportunity to eliminate more enemies. Whoosh! Boom! As another wave of fire rain rushed into the sky, Luu spread his spiritual consciousness outside the domain. In the middle of the alien kingdom, a huge grey planet is so conspicuous. Ha! I finally breathed a sigh of relief. A son of God waved his fist vigorously, with the excitement on his face not concealed at all. After being beaten for many days in a row, they finally got their revenge, which made his aggrieved heart gradually relax. If this continues, the enemy will be completely defeated within 2 days. Another son of God also agreed. Although there were heavy casualties in this battle, if they could win, the huge power of the world could make up for a lot of their losses. TOP3 is indeed very powerful. He alone was able to hold back the other 2 sons of God from the previous term. Yes, we can only play house with ordinary geniuses now, but they can already compete with the sons of gods of the previous generation. The smooth progress of the battle made the sons of gods relax a lot, and they started chatting one after another. I don't know when I will be able to have that kind of strength. You? Wait another 100 years. Haha, in 100 years I will also be the son of God. Hehe. The top 3 are already so strong, I wonder how strong the top 1 and top 2 will be. It should be stronger, right? For example, one person can arm wrestle with 3 or 4 sons of God from the previous generation. Well. Just as everyone was chatting, a son of God suddenly turned around and looked at Luu. Luu, don't worry about your friend. We have the upper hand here. He only needs to hold out for 2 more days at most, and then we can go and support him. I'm not worried about him. Luu scratched his head, not knowing how to answer for a moment. He had an inexplicable confidence in Fang Cang. Perhaps it was the alien races that needed to persist at this time? Well, let's work harder and strive to. At this moment, the Son of God had just said half of his words when a huge roar sounded from the void. At the same time, violent fluctuations of divine power also swept in. This is no time to chat anymore. Everyone focused their minds and looked up into the void. I saw that one of the alien kingdoms had fallen apart. That was exactly one of the divine kingdoms that Fang Cang attacked. At the same time, right under their noses, accompanied by a huge roar, that other kingdom of God. It exploded too. Boom. Chapter 98. Boom. Fragments were flying everywhere. The kingdom of God is torn apart, under the eyes of the gods of the human race. This scene seemed to have cast a spell of immobilization on everyone. For a moment, everyone stood still. The scene was silent, with only the occasional puff sound from debris hitting the kingdom of God. After killing the two sons of God, the huge grey planet did not stop. It crashed into other kingdoms of God again without hesitation. Then, accompanied by a roar, two more divine power channels connected. Ah, this! The impact of this incident on everyone was undoubtedly huge. It took a long time for the sons of God to react, and they were speechless for a moment. I was really shocked by the other party's powerful strength and domineering style. The son of God who had just told the other party to hold on for 2 more days felt hot all over, and a blush spread from his face to his ears. No other reason, just shame. How could I have the nerve to say that? And let them hold on for 2 days? Judging from the strength displayed by the other party at this moment, even without himself and others, he can defeat this group of alien godsons by himself, right? Not sure, let's see. But no matter what, the situation is now very clear, and victory is only a matter of time. At this moment, he even felt that he was a little redundant. What he didn't know was that there was once a son of God named Jo Hong who had the same feeling. Should we continue to fight? At this time, a son of God asked dryly. He felt that although he could win if he continued to fight, he and his companions would surely lose a lot of their followers, so it would be easier to let the other side do it. We still have to fight. It's a bit unreasonable not to fight. Yes, yes. At this time, all the sons of God were very outrageous and had the idea of slacking off. It's not that they want to be lazy. Given the current situation, if they were allowed to fight, they could win, but it would take at least 2 days. Not only is the loss huge, but the process is also slow. If I give it to the other party, well, it should be all done in 1 day. Luu, how about, you contact Fang, the Lord of the Dead, and see what he thinks. A son of God suddenly said that after all, Fang Cang was invited by Luu, and they were quite familiar with each other. It would be better to ask than to let everyone make wild guesses here. Yes, yes, just ask, we can fully cooperate. All the sons of God nodded in agreement. Hearing this, Luu also knew what everyone meant, so he did not refuse. In a flash of his mind, he arrived at the battlefield where Fang Cang was. At this time, Fang Cang was mobilizing the undead to attack the alien relatives. This time he did not summon the bone altar again. Although the bone altar is very effective, it still consumes a large amount of death crystals. In the kingdom of God, he has an entire mine of such crystals, but at present it is still a non-renewable resource. After all, he didn't know whether new dead air veins would appear in the future, so he decided to use it sparingly. When dealing with ordinary battles, his current strength is enough to crush the opponent. Now the only aliens left on the field were a former son of God and 3 geniuses, plus Luu and others attacking from the other side, so this time the fight was much easier for him. Brother Fang. Luu's figure appeared beside Fang Cang. Are you guys done fighting over there? Seeing Luu coming, Fang Cang asked in confusion. At this time, the alien race was facing an attack from both sides. After Fang Cang arrived, they allocated part of their forces to stop Fang Cang. But it was obvious that they could not stop it, and their followers collapsed at the first contact. They were already at a disadvantage, and now they are powerless to turn the situation around. Seeing Luu coming over at this moment, Fang Cang thought that the battle over there was over. I haven't finished fighting yet. Luu touched his nose, feeling a little embarrassed. They have already destroyed 2 kingdoms of God, and we are still struggling. What everyone means is, let me ask you, how do you need us to cooperate? He didn't have the nerve to say it would take another 2 days to finish the battle. Cooperate? Fang Cang pondered for a moment. He doesn't know how to cooperate either. Usually he just rushes in and does it, right? No need to cooperate, just fight as much as you want, I'll be done with it soon. Hearing Fang Cang's casual answer, Luu couldn't hold it anymore. Brother, although I know you are not pretending. But can you please not say it so lightly? This will make us look useless. What's wrong? Looking at Luu's uncomfortable expression, Fang Cang was full of question marks. Did I say something wrong? It's okay, we'll do our best. After leaving behind these words, Luu disappeared in a flash. Strange person. Fang Cang scratched his head and muttered to himself. I don't know what Luu has imagined. Swish. Luu's figure appeared again among the human sons of God. How's it going? What did Fang Cang say? How do we need to cooperate? Seeing him come back, everyone immediately surrounded him and started asking questions. Fang Cang said. Luu glanced at everyone, and everyone was waiting for his answer. Fang Cang said, everyone, attack with all your might. As long as we can hold back the enemy's main force, he can quickly resolve the battle. Then, together, we will kick them out of God's domain. After saying this, Luu smiled as he looked at the sons of God who were gradually becoming excited. He didn't tell the truth, but saying this would undoubtedly make everyone feel more comfortable. This is how people get along with each other. Fang Cang can speak frankly, but he can't, as the other person's friend, do this to make everyone have a better impression of Fang Cang. Although Fang Cang may not care about these, but he cares. One day later. Boom. As the 4 divine kingdoms were shattered one after another and countless fragments floated into the depths of the void, the battle was officially declared over. Only 2 days have passed since Fang Cang came to support. This powerful strength undoubtedly refreshed everyone's cognition again. They are all geniuses of the same class, but the gap between them is getting bigger and bigger. If we wait until the divine fire is ignited, the difference will be even greater. In this process, some people may rise up halfway, but more are likely to remain lost in the crowd. If talent is not revealed at the beginning, the possibility of suddenly awakening one day in the future is very small. Moreover, those people with good qualifications have received a lot of resource support from the very beginning. They have everything going for them, including the right time, the right place, and the right people. You are not the protagonist of a novel, so why should you be given the opportunity to catch up? As I said, the cruelty of reality is actually far greater than that of online novels. Although everyone has a dream of being the protagonist. But in comparison, others may be the rise of losers. And you are a loser. Chapter 99. Divine Realm Divine Domain Research Laboratory. Boom boom boom. Come in. Fang Cang pushed the door open and walked in. As always, a smooth head comes into view. Academician, do sit down. Du Xing looked at the young son of God in front of him and pointed at the sofa. Fang Cang hadn't changed significantly since the last time they met. She had short black hair, narrow eyes, and the dark purple divine pattern on her forehead shone brightly. However, his temperament seemed to become more fierce. To describe it, he was like a toddler, carefully exploring the world and absorbing new knowledge every moment. And now, he is like a newborn tiger cub. Although still immature, he has the courage to challenge everything. Academician Du, I want to ignite the divine fire. After Fang Cang sat down, he didn't exchange pleasantries, he just spoke directly what was on his mind. Your fusion is complete. Yes. Hearing this, Du Xing did not find it strange. With Fang Cang's strength, it was not difficult for him to collect the power of the world, and it was also expected that he would ignite the divine fire at this time. Besides, he is not the first one. Before him, many sons of God have reached this stage. Have you ever tried it yourself? Well, it didn't work. Fang Cang nodded, his expression somewhat complicated. After supporting Luu, he participated in 3 battles in succession. A large amount of world power was absorbed by the kingdom of God, which made him, who was already on the edge of perfection, directly reach a 100% degree of fusion. He was in an excited state at the time and didn't think much about it. He just found a quiet place and began to try to light the sacred fire. However, the result was not as he expected. During the attempt, a large amount of divine power was consumed, but the divine fire was still not ignited. In his opinion, it was just as Du Xing said last time, lighting the divine fire was like building a bridge. Under the constant impact of the turbulent river, he felt that building each piece of the bridge was extremely difficult. He thought it was caused by having too many followers, but after he extracted the world's power from most of the undead bodies, he still failed. After many failed attempts, he decided to come to Du Xing for help. After the divine fire is ignited, the kingdom of God will truly become a complete world. Have you thought about how to plan the kingdom of God? Du Xing still narrowed his eyes and asked another question. A complete world. Fang Cang pondered the meaning of this sentence. It was the first time he heard of this theory. What Du Xing meant was, isn't the current kingdom of God complete yet? Yes, a complete world means that it has complete rules. Even without the interference of gods, it will continue to operate according to the rules. The rules you are talking about are the rotation of the sun and the moon, and the cycle of life and death. The rules that Fang Cang understood were the natural laws of the world. Of course, the kingdom of God was an independent entity, and there was no rotation of the sun and the moon. The Son of God himself was the sun and the moon of this world. But Du Xing shook his head and said, "What you are talking about are the rules of the universe. The rules of the kingdom of God have always existed, but they are hidden now. When you ignite the divine fire, they will truly become apparent." Invisible. Fang Cang pondered over this sentence. Always there but not manifested? Suddenly, Fang Cang seemed to have thought of something, his eyes lit up and he said, "You mean, the power of the world?" "That's right." Du Xing nodded and looked at Fang Cang with satisfaction. The child is teachable. The power of the world has always existed, but has never been manifested, including the three attributes that exist in the Fang Cang divine kingdom, which can only be felt when he communicates with the power of the world. However, the creatures living in the kingdom of God cannot feel it at all. I've said before that when you are granted a kingdom by God, it means that your kingdom has a complete promotion system. The premise is that you, as a god, become the source of power for the kingdom. And a complete kingdom of God is one that allows all living beings in it to still feel the power of the world without the help of gods. Only in this way can they improve themselves through the power of the world, thereby completing the advancement of life and gaining extraordinary abilities in the future. Hearing this, Fang Cang thought of his own situation. The death energy in the kingdom of God is everywhere, but no creature can gain special abilities by sensing the death energy. Is the fundamental reason that the power of the world has not manifested? Dead air is the energy derived from death, but when death is not obvious, they have no idea where to start. The power of the world is actually equivalent to the way of heaven in the kingdom of God. If the way of heaven is not revealed, no one can comprehend the power from it. If that's the case, does that mean that any creature in my kingdom of God has the potential to comprehend the power of the world? That's right. After the world power manifests, the starting point of all living things is the same, including even every blade of grass and every tree in your kingdom of God. At that time, some powerful creatures that are not your followers may appear in the kingdom of God. Therefore, how to plan the kingdom of God and how to deal with these creatures is very important to you. However, as the owner of the divine skill of infusing spirits, my personal advice to you is, just let nature take its course. At this point, Du Xing paused, as if recalling Fang Cang's ability performance. The spirit empowering skill gives you the ability to create followers, which gives you unlimited possibilities. Let them develop on their own, and you may get some unexpected surprises. Of course, you can also choose to hide the power of the world so that the creatures in the kingdom of God cannot feel it. This is also what most people do. They will grant those more obedient creatures the right to feel the power of the world according to their own wishes, so that at least the development of the kingdom of God is under their control. I see. Fang Cang nodded, thoughtfully. He understood what Du Xing said. If all living things were allowed to develop on their own, there would be surprises, but there would also be accidents. He didn't think that these wildly growing things would pose a threat to the undead army. But there is an old saying that one must first stabilize the country before fighting against foreign enemies. If some powerful creatures suddenly come out to cause trouble during the battle, there will definitely be some impact. You know, the power of his world contains darkness, death, and chaos. He doesn't think there will be any good people among the creatures that grow up in such an environment. So this degree must be mastered. Perhaps we could set aside an area for those creatures to use, separating them from their own families so that they don't disturb each other. When the battle comes, you can use it as cannon fodder to fight the enemy. While saving the trouble of training yourself, you can also reduce the consumption of your own followers. The world power gained from victory in battle will be fed back to the kingdom of God, so that more powerful creatures will appear in the kingdom of God. It's already a virtuous cycle. Fang Cang was fantasizing about a bright future when a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Gain the power of the world. More powerful creatures appeared. Isn't this the same as the situation in the divine realm? Could it be that? Fang Cang felt that at this moment he seemed to have discovered something extraordinary. Academician Du, is there any difference between the world power of the God realm, and the world power of the kingdom of God? Fang Cang raised a key question. They are clearly powers from two different dimensions, but why are they called the same name? Is there any connection between them? Hearing this question, Du Xing looked at Fang Cang with a playful look and spoke. Except for the different properties between individuals, they are actually the same kind of power. The divine realm is the kingdom of a certain existing god. And we? Then they are his dependents. Chapter 100. The divine realm is the kingdom of a certain existing god. And we are his followers. Du Xing's words exploded in Fang Cang's mind like a thunder. He stared at Du Xing blankly, his whole body numb, and it was difficult for him to accept it for a moment. We are someone else's dependents. This sentence is really too destructive. Although he has always regarded each of his followers as a complete individual life, no matter what, as a god he cannot treat them equally. It feels like playing a game. No matter how much you like the characters in the game, you can't treat them as real people. And now, someone actually told him that, in fact, you are just a game character in the hands of others. This is really... Fang Cang's mind was a mess at this moment. He opened his mouth several times but didn't know what to say. Don't be too surprised. This conclusion is just a guess. When you have enough strength in the future, you can explore it on your own. Seeing Fang Cang's expression, Du Xing spoke to comfort him. If he were an ordinary son of God, he would not say these words, but with Fang Cang's potential, it is only a matter of time before he is exposed to some secrets. Now that he is about to become a god, it doesn't hurt to tell him some things. In that case, our divine power is actually the attribute of this world. The fact that we can descend into the divine realm is actually the result of our innate divine skills. Fang Cang said this while organizing his thoughts. If you think about it from this perspective, it is indeed possible. The entire divine world is considered a divine kingdom, and the creatures living in it are the followers of a certain god. These followers have comprehended the power of the world, and thus gained the ability to travel through the divine realm. But there are still many doubts, the first of which is the area of the divine realm. Whether in the divine realm or the divine world, the most suitable area for a kingdom of God is about 500 million square kilometers. If it is larger, it will be a burden to the gods. The area of the divine realm. Although there is no relevant information at present, there are countless civilizations living there, and its area is far beyond imagination. Everything is just people's speculation about the origin of the divine world over the years. We can only understand it from the existing perspective. If there really is a higher dimensional existence, it is beyond our imagination. As he spoke, Du Xing stood up and walked to the wall. Let me show you something. As the words fell, a picture appeared on the wall. It was a place where one could not tell whether it was the realm of gods or the domain of gods. The whole picture seems to have been taken from a very far away place. In the pitch-black void, a huge crack stood in the center of the picture. Behind the crack seemed to be an endless void, with some tiny dots of light twinkling in it, which were all planets. At the same time, countless planets are erupting from the cracks every moment. Against the backdrop of the cracks, each planet looks as small as sand. This is a void crack. There are many such places in the divine realm. The picture stopped and Du Xing turned around and said. People suspect that this is how the planets in the land of God came into being, including our kingdom of God, all appeared in this way. These cracks also prove that there are other universes outside of the divine realm. So far, no one has been able to enter them. The power there is enough to tear a true god apart. Even the God King can't do it. Fang Cang suddenly asked. I don't know, then you have to ask the God King. These are not secrets. You may encounter them when you travel in the God's domain in the future. For now, if you encounter them, you'd better stay away from them. Seeing Fang Cang nodded, Du Xing continued. After observation, we found that the void crack has actually been growing, and its area is getting larger and larger. As for whether it will have any impact on the God's realm in the future, we still have no way of knowing. But it at least proves that there are other universes outside of our universe, and there are planets and life there too. Who knows, maybe there will be higher level life in the future. At this point, Du Xing turned off the screen and returned to his seat. Fang Cang was thinking about the information he had obtained today. He had long forgotten the purpose of coming here today. Let's get back to the point. There are actually only 3 requirements to ignite the divine fire. First, the kingdom of God must be fully integrated. You have already done this, so there is no need to consider it again. Second, you need enough divine power. Your fighting style determines that you probably don't have much divine power left. During this period of time, you should focus on accumulating divine power and don't participate in battles for the time being. For other sons of gods, their divine power is only used to strengthen their followers on a daily basis, or to occasionally display their innate divine skills. But Fang Cang was different. Every time he fought, he would consume a large amount of divine power to summon the undead, which kept his divine power at a very low level. This is only possible because he has a large enough number of followers. If someone else did this, they probably wouldn't be able to sustain the consumption of a battle. As for the third point, Du Xing paused for a moment, still with that smiling face. You have to leave the place where God descends first. This. Fang Cang's eyes widened. Don't they say that only gods can leave? Yes, but have you forgotten the rules of the land of God's descendants? If you light the divine fire in the land of God's descendants, then you will probably have to suffer. Well. Fang Cang reacted suddenly. No one above the Son of God may enter. What would happen if he became a god in the land where gods descended? Du Xing said that he would suffer. Although I don't know what crime it is, since he said so, there must be many people who have done this. It's not a good thing to think about. Although it won't lead to death, it will be inexplicably painful. Forget it. Fang Cang felt that his thinking was solidified. He had never thought about this problem at all. He had always believed that he could only leave the land where gods descended after becoming a god. But now that Du Xing reminded him, he finally realized that this would conflict with the rules of the land of gods. In other words, normal sons of God can leave after being fully integrated into the kingdom of God. Then they will light the divine fire outside the place where God descends. His identity as a patrol team member allowed him to control the movement of the kingdom of God early on, so this matter had become commonplace for him. But those ordinary sons of God don't have this treatment. They can only control the movement of the kingdom of God after it is completely integrated. By then, they will naturally realize this problem. No wonder. Du Xing's words also woke Fang Cang up. You don't have enough divine power, but you still want to ignite the divine fire in the place where the gods descend. It would be strange if you could succeed. So you mean that I should leave the place where God descends now? Fang Cang looked at Du Xing. There was a hint of uneasiness about the future in his eyes, but more of it was anticipation of opening a new map. It has been nearly 3 years since he came to the divine realm, and finally, he is about to become a god. Although the situation this year is rather special, this speed has undoubtedly far exceeded that of the Son of God in the past. If you have nothing else to do, leave first. You don't need to participate in the battle there. There are more important things waiting for you to do later. As he spoke, Du Xing probed into the bracelet and sent a document to Fang Cang. This is a map of the divine realm. It has the coordinates of human civilization marked on it. You can go there first. It is the safest place. Message me when you get there. I'll take you shopping. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.